Let's stand for the pledge. I'll call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which is one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now call the roll for the commission members. Colin Locke is present. Jimmy Ruth Evans.
Here.
Dan Schultz. Here. Ken Jordan. Here. Barrett Klein. Here. Wendy Payne.
Here.
Joe Leathers.
Here.
Tom Yost.
Here.
Joseph Osterkamp.
Here.
TJ Klein.
Here.
Benjamin Turner.
Here.
Johnny Trotter is absent. Dr. Kenan Sturgis.
Here.
And I will entertain a motion to excuse Commissioner Trotter. He's had surgery and is recovering and is not able to be with us. And I told him, don't. He called me over the weekend and told me what was going on. I said, don't. He sounded a bit weak on the phone, and I said, don't worry about coming. We're going to cover for you. So if anyone feels like making a motion to excuse him, I will entertain that.
Then move over here in a second.
Somebody make a motion. Oh, okay. The motion, the second.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second to excuse Commissioner Trotter. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we have, for the record, we have 12 commissioners and one absent. So we shuffled the agenda just a little bit. We're going to move right now, an item that's on the regular agenda, the audit subcommittee report. We're going to move that up right now and hear that right now. So Commissioner Leathers, we'll turn that over to you and the audit committee.
I've asked Mr. Dan Graves to come and give us a brief summary of the audit he did for all the commissioners to hear this portion.
Good morning. Yes, Dan Graves. I'm your internal auditor with Weaver. Mr. Leathers did ask me to present this morning. Just we had a robust and pretty thorough presentation at the audit committee, but he asked me to present a summary of the first reports that this agency has received from us. So this year we had 2 internal audits on our fiscal year 2026 internal audit plan, one over procurement, and then one that was a follow-up of all the prior outstanding findings that when we came into the agency that were outstanding at that point. So our procurement report, we issued a satisfactory rating over that. There's 3 ratings. If you look in the appendix to that, we have a strong, a satisfactory, and unsatisfactory. This received a satisfactory rating. We did identify 2 findings, one over increasing some policies and procedures around the procurement cycle for the agency, and the other was about maintaining some better documentation or more robust documentation in the procurement files themselves. So those were the 2 findings, both risk rated at moderate. The agency has plans and responded in the report and plans to have those addressed by January of 2027. And so that is the summary of that report. The follow-up report from the prior years, there were 3 audits that had a total of, I believe it's 4 findings. From my notes, 5 findings. And all 5 of those were either remediated or closed. And so that's a testament to the agency staff following up and remediating items that were identified in prior reports. And so as of today, what we can present to you is that the only internal audit findings that are open are the 2 from the current year's internal audit. The other 2 activities, the other 2 things we presented to the audit committee was one is the proposed plan for fiscal year 2027. If you recall back to the beginning of this year, we did a full risk assessment for internal audit purposes and presented a multi-year plan. We did rearrange one thing and we moved IT up to this year instead of doing it in fiscal year 2028. We through discussion with agency management, they wanted to move that up to fiscal year 2027. We agreed. And so the 2 audits that we have on the proposed plan for your approval this morning is the information technology services area. So that's the central nervous system for the agency of IT operations. and then physical asset management. There's two classes of assets that agencies are required to track. Those are capital assets and then controlled assets. Controlled assets are usually IT equipment. And so those two, along with follow-up procedures over the two open internal audit findings for procurement. The other report that we presented was the fiscal year 2026 internal audit report. That's a statutorily required report through the Texas Internal Audit Act. We presented and are asking for provisional approval of that report. The reason it's provisional is we are still waiting on the SAO, the State Auditor's Office, to publish the guidance for fiscal year 2026 on that report. It's statutory, like I said, it's required by statute, but the SAO tells you what needs to go in that report. Over the last 5 or 6 years, the contents really haven't changed. And so we use the 2025 guidance to prepare the report. We are waiting until the official guidance comes out for this current year to see if there's any changes needed. And so that's why we're asking for provisional approval. I don't expect that there will be any changes. And so if there's none, we can just go ahead and file it. But if there are changes, we make those changes and bring it back to you for your approval. So that's the summary of fiscal year 2026. We've completed our plan and are ready to move forward with fiscal year 2027. We intend to attack those audits earlier in the fiscal year so that we can be in and out and done before legislative session starts, so that agency personnel don't have internal audit activity going on and have to respond to us while they're trying to walk through the legislative session. Any questions?
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, with that in mind, the audit subcommittee went ahead and approved the 2026 report, and they also approved the recommendations for 2026.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the audit subcommittee report as discussed today. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the audit subcommittee report. Any discussion or questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Now, at this time, we'll go into executive session to receive legal advice, discuss pending or contemplated litigation and settlement offers as permitted by section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, and to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of specific commission employees as permitted by section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. So we're back in open session. It is 10:04. There is no action needed to be done on any item that was discussed in executive session this morning. And we will now approve the minutes of the 428th meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of the 428th commission meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no. That motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda will be a New World screwworm response update.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. As you can see, we've kind of altered the agenda for this meeting since we've transitioned into New World screwworm response and not New World screwworm preparation. So decided to have kind of a standalone report, and I will make some remarks and kind of set the stage, if you will, and then we'll have several staff come to the podium and offer some different comments on the response and mitigation efforts for New World screwworm. So as you're aware, the New World screwworm has commanded much of our attention over the past 2.5 months. This pest has required an unprecedented level of coordination among producers, veterinarian industry partners, and government agencies. Since Texas confirmed the first case of New World screwworm on June the 3rd, we have identified only 45 cases across 16 counties. While every case is taken seriously, those numbers reflect something important. The extraordinary vigilance of Texas producers, veterinarians, and animal health officials. From the moment this threat emerged, Texas responded quickly by monitoring animals, reporting suspicious cases, and taking prompt action to prevent further spread. The significance of those efforts becomes clear when we compare Texas experience to what has occurred elsewhere. Since Mexico reported its first New World screwworm case in November of 2024, it has recorded more than 38,500 cases in 30 of its 31 states. Across Central America, nearly 180,000 animal cases have been detected since 2023. Perhaps the best way to understand the effectiveness of the current response is to compare it with Texas's past experience. New World screwworm was declared eradicated in 1966. However, reemergence in 1972 caused more than 90,000 animals in Texas to be infested, affecting 244 of the 254 counties. Even a decade after eradication in 1976, the resurgence still resulted in more than 29,000 cases. Against that backdrop, the limited number of cases we have seen today is a testament to early detection, rapid response, and strong collaboration among producers, veterinarians, and government partners. The fact that Texas has limited this outbreak to 45 cases is not the result of chance. It is a result of preparation, partnership, and an aggressive response strategy. This has allowed us to treat affected animals promptly and support the targeted release of sterile flies to interrupt the pest life cycle before it can spread further. Let me briefly highlight some of the steps that have been taken to achieve these results and why sustaining these efforts remains so important moving forward. Following the initial detection, the Texas Animal Health Commission activated an incident command post to coordinate response activities across all levels of government. We are currently operating alongside the Texas Division of Emergency Management and our federal partners at the State Operations Center and the Operational Command Post in Pleasanton, Texas. Field team remain actively engaged across impacted counties, providing inspections, surveillance, outreach, and direct support to livestock producers. Since the beginning, our response focuses on three key priorities. First, controlling animal movement to prevent the pest from spreading to other parts of the state. Second, stopping the fly's life cycle through treatment of infested animals and the release of sterile flies. And third, increasing surveillance, getting eyes on animals to detect cases as early as possible. Each time a case is identified, we conduct an epidemiological assessment to evaluate the risk of natural movement of the fly. Based on those assessments and in accordance with the USDA New World screwworm playbook, we designate an area as an infested zone and implement movement protocols designed to prevent the human movement of infested animals. This zone-based on approach allows us to target our response where the risk is greatest. Within those designated zones, we focus surveillance, animal inspection, treatment activities, controlled movements, and sterile fly dispersal efforts where they will be most effective. The strategy helps contain the pest within affected areas, prevents its spread into new regions, and allows vast majority of Texas producers outside those zones to continue normal livestock movement and business operations with minimal disruption. The effectiveness of this response ultimately comes down to boots on the ground. TAHC personnel are working side by side with producers every day to conduct inspections, strengthen surveillance, support treatment efforts, and facilitate safe animal movement. To date, the Texas Animal Health Commission has conducted more than 52,000 animal inspections within the affected areas and issued over 1,900 movement certificates for animals leaving infested zones. In addition to THC inspectors, a key component of our response has been expanding inspection capacity through the New World screwworm Certified Inspector Program. This program trains and authorizes qualified individuals to conduct inspections and issue movement certificates. As of yesterday morning, 830 qualified applicants have been approved to serve as certified inspectors. This addition to our 2,712 Texas Authorized Personnel Program veterinarians greatly expands our ability to facilitate safe and efficient animal movement while maintaining disease control safeguards. Education and outreach continue to be a strong focus, as THC personnel have participated in hundreds of speaking events, webinars, and town halls to spread awareness, provide practical advice, and share important resources. We also continue to look for new ways to make compliance easier for producers while maintaining strong protection against the spread of New World screwworms. In addition to our interactive New World screwworm map, THC recently partnered with the Texas AgriLife Extension Service to launch a web-based New World screwworm movement guidance platform. This user-friendly tool helps producers quickly determine movement requirements based on animal species, the type of movement, and the animal's origin and destination. Our goal is to take the guesswork out of the process and provide clear, practical guidance that allows animals to move safely and efficiently while protecting the state's livestock industry. Because we recognize that many Texans operate in remote areas with limited connectivity, this resource is available both online and as a downloadable offline guide through the Texas Animal Health Commission New World Screwworm webpage. By putting these tools directly into the hands of producers, veterinarians, and certified inspectors, we are making compliance easier, improving situational awareness, and strengthening our collective ability to prevent the spread of New World screwworm. At the same time, our message remains simple. Producers are our first line of defense. We encourage livestock owners to inspect their animals regularly and report suspicious wounds or larvae immediately. Early detection and rapid reporting remain the most effective tools we have to contain this pest and protect the Texas animal agriculture. Progress we have achieved over the past 83 days is a direct reflection of the strong partnership between livestock owners, veterinarians, livestock markets, industry organizations, local communities, state agencies, and our federal partners. No single organization could accomplish this alone. Together, we have limited the spread of a pest that has historically caused devastating economic losses and threatened the viability of livestock production throughout the state. While we are encouraged by the results to date, we remain vigilant. New World screwworm continues to pose a serious threat, and sustained surveillance, outreach, and response efforts will be critical moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dinges, for leading that. We're going to move into the education and outreach portion of this conversation. From the very beginning of our research, even into New World screwworm, we heard the importance of education and outreach for the success of a New World screwworm response. From the very beginning, the leadership of this agency has taken that very seriously, and this entire agency has been on board with educating their communities, their local industry partners, as well as themselves, to ensure that we could have a good base of education before we entered into an active response. My name is Erin Robinson. I'm the Texas Animal Health Commission Director of Communications, but lately I've been the Public Information Officer for this event. My teammate, Isabella Busby, has also been serving in the Public Information Officer front this entire response. Very grateful for our partnership and the great partners we've had in our industry and our other partners with our state agencies and federal agencies on this education and outreach front. Again, this entire agency has taken education and outreach serious. We have had our veterinarians, our executives, our region staffs, and anybody else I could rope into talking to community events, public outreach, public meetings, town halls, going to their local county extension agents, going to the local judges, being in their communities to drop off flyers at feed stores, just getting the New World screwworm general education information out to the public. This has been happening for over a year now, but you'd be surprised the amount of people who had no idea what a New World screwworm was when we got it here in Texas. We did a lot of preparation and a lot of planning, and I could tell you all about that for hours and hours and hours. But at the end of the day, the most important thing I want you to take away from that is that there were a lot of great relationships made amongst federal partners, state partners, and industry partners to prepare a very strategic communication plan that was rolled out before screwworms even got to Texas. As we watched the New World screwworm march up through Mexico, we rolled out the strategic communication plan that started with general education, moved into more awareness, then became a preparedness message, and now we're in a more active role of awareness for what to do to mitigate the spread of this pest. As we have sent out many folks to different events, as you see here, as we have educated many folks to then pass on that education, like county extension agents who then reported out to their own counties. We had those key messages in mind. Vigilance is going to be the answer, and it's going to take all of us. We have a very important role as a state agency in this response, but our federal partners also have an important role, and producers also have an important role when it comes to educating themselves and also educating their peers. As we watched New World Screwworm march up through Mexico, this was one of the resources that we rolled out. It's our New World Screwworm landing page. On this page, it started very bare bones, very general information. We had a fact sheet, a livestock producer emergency management guide, and a veterinarian producer guide. We sent this information out to folks. We got in contact with veterinarians. We shared this information through those resources I've already mentioned to you all, and we posted them online. In the background, we also worked with our partners to develop a cache of information and resources that could be rolled out if and when we got New World Screwworm in Texas. Unfortunately, we did, but we were prepared when it did. We were able to add a bunch of great information onto this. We were able to add a lot of great information onto this page. One of those things is this interactive map. We worked with our GIS specialist, who deserves a shout out. Colleen Adams is an incredible map nerd that you all should get to know. This interactive map was a resource that has been exponentially helpful, not only to help people become more aware of New World Screwworm in their area, but also to know what to do and where to go to get information. So if you have not seen this map, if you click on the yellow area, it pops up with "You are in an infested zone" and tells you all the things that you need to know about being in an infested zone. If you are in the blue area, it pops up and said "You're in an adjacent surveillance zone" and tells you all the things you need to know about being in an adjacent surveillance zone. And then if you're outside of those zones, it still pops up and says "You're not in these zones, but here's the information that you need to know about New World Screwworm." So this was a great tool, not only to help people understand where the premises were located or where their premises fell in to a New World Screwworm zone or not, but also continue that education piece and that awareness piece to keep people informed about the very important messages that we continue to perpetuate. There's lots of other resources that we rolled out in response to industry needs. This information was rolled out in lots of different ways, but one of the things we were asked to do was saturate the Texas Animal Health Commission social media platforms with New World Screwworm education and relevant information. Sharing accurate information on social media is very difficult for some people to do, and so we wanted to make sure that we had lots of resources available for them to be able to share accurate and good information. The other side of social media is that there are a lot of things people will say behind a keyboard that they would not say to our face. And so I want to give Isabella Busby a shout out because she had to be the one to look at all of those things, respond kindly, and share good, accurate information and resources. And she did an excellent job at it. In case you didn't know, the Department of Communications at the Texas Animal Health Commission is 2 people. We had a very big job and very big shoes to fill as we entered into this education and outreach campaign for New World Screwworm. I think we did a very good job coordinating with our partners, making sure that we stayed connected with both industry and state, as well as our federal partners from the communication and outreach front. However, there's always ways to improve. And I want to ensure all of you that just last Monday, we had a meeting with our state agency, federal, and industry communication partners to continue to enhance and bolster our communication plan related to New World Screwworm. With that being said, we continue to engage in media, in social media, in developing materials, and sharing information at public meetings across the state of Texas and beyond. This agency continues to be committed to educating producers, providing them good and useful resources and information, and making sure our field responders are equipped to share that information in an efficient and effective way. Next up, we will have Holly Teachin-Hale, who is our Director of Emergency Management, lately known as our Planning Section Chief.
Thanks, Aaron. I was going to do that introduction, but you took care of it, so I appreciate it. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity today to talk a little bit about the response, where we are now. I'm gonna touch mainly on the structure and some of the details that go along with that. I'm going to try to take you on a short journey from the very beginning to where we are now. So with that, I wanted to let y'all in on a little something. It was actually on June 1st where we had a team arrive to Eagle Pass. We were going to do some targeted outreach to the area due to the proximity of the case that was in Mexico, how close it was. We thought it'd be a great idea to start doing some targeted outreach. We happened to be in the right place at the right time because on June 3rd, we got notification of an actual case in Texas. So it was really good because we were there and ready to go. And at that time, we were set up in this picture here, which is the conference room of the hotel that we were staying at. So we started gearing up to do that targeted outreach when we found out about the first case. So when we found out about that, our targeted outreach actually became targeted surveillance, which is a strategy that we planned for the last couple of years of doing when we got our first case. We would do that targeted surveillance in the first infested zone. So we did start to do that. And then on June 5th, we got our second case. So we knew things were ramping up and our strategies might change, but that's what we were doing at the time. So we did manage to do targeted surveillance around that first case in the infested zone. And so we have some data around that. And we were talking to folks out there around that index case. And so we spent just a few days there in that first hotel conference room with our command post, if you will. And then on June 6th, we moved to Eagle Pass to our incident command post that was there. And so at the end of the day, we spent about a week there. And then as you'll see here on June 13th, we moved to the Pleasanton Incident Command Post because we knew we would definitely outgrow the Eagle Pass Incident Command Post, and also that we needed to be more central to where we thought maybe it would be moving to. So just to give you an idea, and this is just a very short list of some of the early activities that we were doing within that first week. Of course, setting up the incident command post, the two that we had started early on. We're so thankful that we have a strong logistics section here at the agency to get those things put in place quickly. One of the very first things you do on an incident is establish the meeting and call schedule, or what is sometimes referred to as the battle rhythm. If you don't do that right off the bat, you will be struggling the rest of the time. Our operations section was lining out the field operations team. So again, what started out as that targeted surveillance, and then it switched to a passive surveillance after we got several cases and a couple of infested zones. At that point, you could not do targeted surveillance anymore. We were establishing ways to track our resources, some protocols around that, checking folks in and out, which I have found in this incident that is one of the most difficult things to do, but we are there and we are doing it effectively. Establishing a phone system early on for answering and routing public calls. We have a great phone system here, and so we just developed quickly a decision tree to route those calls. Fun little fact, in June, we had looked it up. We had 683 calls that came in here to the central office in June due to this. Some other things we were doing were rostering and mobilizing the necessary incident management team and field responders. So we were looking at the need every day and working to fill those needs with Animal Health Commission personnel, but also our partner agencies. And so that goes into the next one, the collaborating with various response partners. And again, Dr. Dinges mentioned it earlier, but there is no way we could have done this without the partners that we have. And so that was a very big piece of this. So early on, several of those partners were in the command post with us doing that. Of course, interfacing with the governor's office and the Texas Division of Emergency Management. Janine has done a fabulous job doing that. And then providing data and information to report out to various groups. That's been a very heavy lift too, as you can imagine, getting information collected, formalized in a good manner, and reported out to whomever needs to know that. And so credit the epidemiology department and others with that. So just a couple of pictures here of the Eagle Pass Incident Command Post that we were there for about a week. I tell you, it feels like we were there longer than that. That is where a lot of the hectic days were felt there in an old DPS office building. And then we moved to the Pleasanton Incident Command Post after that. You can see the picture there. So very busy place to be. The Pleasanton Incident Command Post is also where the mobile lab was set up and is still set up there today. So some of the other things that I wanted to kind of help paint a picture for y'all, and these are objectives that come straight out of our incident action plan. These are just some of the recent objectives, but they've been ones that have been part of this for really since the beginning. And I won't read all these, but just to highlight on some of the important aspects of what we're trying to achieve out there. Of course, strengthening interagency collaboration. We want to effectively contain New World screwworms, so that is always an objective through quarantines, well-defined zones, and monitored exit checkpoints. Preventing contact between New World screwworm flies and non-infested animals, and that goes a lot into the whole piece of continuing to educate producers and the public on how to do that, mainly through management practices. We also want to, of course, continue the surveillance, but also the application of the sterile insect technique, which has been a tremendous help. And we thank USDA for that. And that has primarily been run through the USDA incident management team. Diagnostic testing, of course, timely pre-movement inspections, which we'll talk about here in a little while with Rex and Bradley. That support business continuity, and then providing information outreach, and Aaron already very effectively covered that. So just some overarching objectives so that y'all get a picture of what we're trying to achieve. So where we are now, we were in Pleasanton at the Incident Command Post for approximately 6 weeks. As Dr. Dinges mentioned earlier, Operations Command Post is still located there, where our Operations Branch is still located there and working out of there. The rest of us, along with the USDA Incident Management Team, are now at the State Operations Center, and there's a couple of pictures there of that. All the folks that are in the picture on the right are not necessarily there all the time. That was during when they had an additional activation due to weather. So we're in there concurrently with that. So anyway, just a couple of pictures there. And that was on the week of July 20th when we were asked to move over to the State Operations Center. And then just a quick overview of how we're structured, and I won't go into great details, but what you see here is the overall structure. And at the top of that, all of the boxes there is your command staff, and then your general staff below that. And that is made up of your operations section, which I referred to is they are commanding the boots on the ground, everything going on the ground, whether it's the domestic animal branch, which is a lot of the inspections, and the permitting and that. And then the other side of it is this sterile insect technique and the trapping of the flies. And then you have the planning section, of course, which Aaron mentioned. I've been the planning section chief for the Animal Health Commission for that since the beginning. The logistics section, mentioned them. They're getting us things as we need it and securing things. They're very strong. And then, of course, the finance section, a very important piece as well. So just to kind of show you how we're structured. And again, if you don't have this structure in place and you didn't think about it and talk about it before, you would be very lost. And then I just wanted to kind of highlight here the operations section, and just because that's where the bulk and the meat of the operations are occurring. And I need to get a little closer to that so I can see it. But you've got 5 branches that we have up there, and we've got our tactical epidemiology branch, which is Dr. James is primarily overseeing that, and that's just following up on each of the cases and making sure we have all the epidemiology information there. The Wildlife Operations Branch, and that is Texas Parks and Wildlife Services overseeing that. The Domestic Animal Operations Branch, that is primarily what Animal Health Commission is doing out, boots on the ground, the checkpoints, the inspections, the sale barns, all of that is under that branch. The Fly Operations Branch, that is the sterile insect technique that USDA is running, and the fly trapping, and then of course the field lab. So just to kind of lay it out there for you so you know who's all doing what, and that involves a lot of people. And so I just kind of wanted to end with this, the agencies that we've worked with since day one. You've got us, Texas Parks and Wildlife, Department of State Health Services, Texas Forest Service has offered folks up to help with the checkpoints, TDEM, of course, the Texas A&M University System with Extension and the DAR and the lab, Health and Human Services, Texas Military Forces, the list goes on. And then, of course, you have all of the branches of USDA that have been helping with this, and Department of Homeland Security and the Department of the Interior. So a lot of folks involved in it, but completely necessary to get the job done. So we're grateful for everyone. And I just wanted to say on Monday, our number of responders was 156 in our resource unit report. 88 of those were federal and 68 were state, just to kind of give you an idea. So with that, I will end my report and thank you all. Yes, sir.
Quick question. I applaud y'all for all that you've done in the organization that it takes to do it, the number of people that it takes to do it. But let's take it out to the ranch. Let's say Joe Leathers lives 50 miles from town. And I think I've got a case of screwworms. Who do I call to get a test kit? Who do I get a call to come inspect? How do the producers that live remotely, that haven't maybe been to some of these meetings, how do they know who to call to make it, to expedite it for them?
If you call here at the central office, that they will route it to the incident command post in Pleasanton, where our operations section is at, and they'll, based on where you're at, there's teams out there in those infested zones, and they can certainly get out there and look at your animals.
Thank you.
What happens when, say, a rise? In like, when you get a screwworm, when somebody comes out there, what happens at that point?
So they'll just take samples and then we'll get them routed. As of right now, we're getting them sent, and there's some triaging done. We'll have folks look at it and see if it looks highly suspicious or maybe something that's a little bit lower suspicion, but it will get triaged, but it will go to one of those labs. So either the lab that's located at Pleasanton or the lab in Kerrville is also. And then if it's extremely low, somewhere maybe not close to the infested zones, it will get shipped to NBSL.
My point is, I've heard complaints about information overload, and I've heard about not enough information. So where do you balance that? But it all boils down to what happens at the property. And that's the long and the short of it. How does it work in real life? If it works, y'all are very, very organized here, obviously. And I applaud you for it, but for the regular Joe Blow producer, it boils down to who do I call and when.
Yes, sir. They can, like she said, route it through our central office here, route it through our region offices. We can talk to that producer, tell them what they need to do to, we can go out and collect samples, or we can get them collection kits where they can collect samples, or their private practitioner veterinarian can collect samples. Make sure that they deal with the wound properly and the larvae that are in the infested wound. And then we will expedite the sample getting to either the Kerrville lab or to the mobile NBSL lab and that Pleasanton there. So,
there's an 800 number that's out there on all the
800 number,
information that
any of our region offices, or they can click on the map there and it'll give them the number.
I think that information is getting received more and more by producers, but there was a delay in it for a while on who to call, when to call, and you know, you get, as a commissioner, there's too many rules, and then there's not enough rules. There's too much surveillance, there's not enough surveillance. There's too much information, there's not enough information. It's all got to boil down to the ranch.
Yes, sir. And it's always a balance. You're right. Yes.
Seems like their first call ought to be to their veterinarian.
Do what?
Seems like their first call ought to be to their veterinarian to find out what it is and what they ought to do, but.
And it can be, absolutely. Then the
there
veterinarian.
has been a number of those that they call the vet, then the vet really knows what to do, and they get the samples and flavors from it. And having to deal with Kerrville and at Pleasanton has sped up the process tremendously, because we're waiting for the sample to get on a FedEx plane or not on a FedEx plane. And we had several days, and that has probably helped a lot. So I understand that you all have staff that will, when it's collected, the veterinarian collects whatever, y'all are very quickly moving it to one of the labs.
Does this help with when you have a disease outbreak? I mean, what have you learned from this that might help with a disease outbreak like foot and mouth or African swine fever? That's a different animal. This we can see.
Right.
So what?
I think first and foremost, knowing that you're going to need all of these extra resources to help these partner agencies, that's one of the key things. but also just kind of knowing the questions that producers and folks in the public are going to ask is very helpful. We've learned a lot there. The reactions that the public is having, it also helps. So, but also knowing how we can interact with a unified command situation with USDA has been very helpful. Now we know exactly what that looks like. So things like that, at least for me, have been very helpful. Thank you. Thank y'all for the questions.
Thanks, Holly. Aaron. Good report.
But wait, there's more.
Still on where it's going.
Are you gonna talk about speed?
What? What's that? Never heard of. So, yeah, no, great questions. And I think just a couple of follow-up things that I would add is that from a notification standpoint, I mean, that's been a big part of our messaging out for going on 2 years is you got to call somebody, whether it's your veterinarian, whether it's us in the regional office, if you know somebody at the sale barn, the livestock inspector there, county extension agent, certainly have been great partners. They're the ones that have got most of the kits for distribution. Certainly have lots of kits that or materials out there on how to do your own kit and providing guidance for folks to be able to get those samples. I know we're pretty remote places like Brewster County. You know, you got to either live there or be going there on purpose to find yourself in those areas. So having those resources are critical. And then just, you got to call somebody, and Parks and Wildlife has been another great asset in there to help triage, oversee that information and triage those cases I'll talk about the triage piece in a little bit as we go there. So a couple of introductory remarks and certainly appreciate the overview from Dr. Dinges and Holly and Aaron setting up some of the piece. So as you can tell in this response, the operations piece is a pretty heavy lift. I mean, that's where all the work occurs. I shouldn't say all the work because certainly from a planning perspective and everything going on in the background to get the information that we need to do ultimately infested zone releases and all those things, that's all critical parts of it as well. But from on the ground, out in the field, essentially operations like Holly said is kind of split into the domestic animals. And so that is what we're using to classify livestock, companion animals, and then things like captive exotics and some of the exotic sales, congregation points and things like that. Those kind of lump in there, and that's where the inspections and the permitting occur. Wildlife is based largely on surveillance, and that's a critical piece in terms of getting data for release. And then, of course, we've got fly operations, lab operations, and our technical epidemiologists, and all that. Holly did a good job covering. So, just to kind of give some perspective on what it looks like on the ground, right now we've got 19 infested zones. We've got 7 teams that are out there doing inspections and permitting within those zones. And those are comprised of Animal Health Commission inspectors and Department of State Health Services inspectors. And so we've not only had meat inspectors, but some inspectors from DSHS from other programs as well. Can't say enough the criticality and the importance of partnerships in this and having those resources to come in with us and try to get this work done. And then as the certified inspector program continues to grow, what that will do for us in terms of being able to force multiply, getting those inspections and permits accomplished. So additionally, in the domestic animal branch, we've got the market teams. And so we've got 3 teams that are augmenting our inspection staff that's already assigned to these sales. Those 3 teams are helping work at 8 different sales at 6 different markets. And so certainly, again, our AgriLife the DAR agents have been a great asset there and will continue, they said, to support us in that. And that's been really critical to get some additional eyes on animals, not only for helping to look at paperwork and do surveillance for animals in some of these high-risk zones, but just across the board, some additional eyes on animals, along with our partners at these sales, that the sale barn owners, the sale barn staff, buyers, everybody's looking at these animals. So there's lots of surveillance there, which is critical. So Right now, we've got 37 field staff deployed. I don't have all the counts for other folks that are from other agencies, but on this piece of paper here, and I couldn't have remembered it if somebody had told me, but in addition to that, we've got the overhead structure, the operational management support that's going on in Pleasanton has been discussed. So as we think about the different species here, certainly from a cattle perspective, 22 of the 45 cases that we've had have been in cattle. And at this point, our teams have been out there doing inspections for movement and permitting. And at this point, we've permitted about 1,500 head of cattle. And so in 83 days, that's what that looks like on the cattle side. And again, that's just the permitted piece, not everything that's being looked at out in the field and at the surveillance that's going on that doesn't necessarily get counted in any record as we work the sale barn. Sheep and goat, geographically, I think we're all aware that the sheep and goat heavy parts of the state have certainly been impacted by New World screwworms in those infested areas there. And 21 of the 45 cases that we've had have been in sheep and goats. And so that gets us to 43 cases. So again, it's sheep and goats and cattle is where most of this is happening at this point in time. And it's important to recognize that in that sheep and goat piece, we've had a lot of opportunity to interact with lots of producers and learn a lot about the sheep and goat industry, things that not all of us realize in terms of where all of these sheep and goats are moving to and how they market some of those animals. So that's been eye-opening and certainly a great opportunity for us to get to know that industry a little better. So we've inspected approximately 22,300 head for movement of sheep and goats at this point. And as we kind of move along here and think about where the other animals falling into this that are not quite as many, and stole my thunder there. There we go. Talk about horses for just a minute. Very early on, we realized that horses were going to be a challenge, and we knew that before screwworms got here because of the limited treatments that were going to be available, and because of some of the treatments that had been conditionally approved or given an emergency use authorization. I've been not shy about saying I am not the veterinarian that's going to go give a shot of Dectomax to horse, and I don't know that very many practitioners want to do that. And so there's some challenges with what's been approved for horses. But at the end of the day, we realize that that's a very low risk situation with what these horses are worth and what they're being used for and how often they're looked at and inspected and monitored. The odds are they're not going to be the ones that are going to be moving screwworms around, right? So a couple options on those. We realized very early on that there were a lot of horses moving in and out of these zones, either day hands that lived in the zones that were doing work out, or lived right outside a zone and were coming in to help do work inside. You also had rodeo horses, youth horses, things like that needed to move in and out. So implemented the 14-day pass model after what's done with cattle fever ticks. And that's worked very well to help manage that situation. And any horses that are moving out for either permanently or for a longer term are getting an enhanced inspection and treated topically with Archeon spray, which is an organic, much friendlier on the applicator, the animal, and the environment than some of our Corral, which we use for fever ticks and some things there. So to this point, we've had about 463 head of horses that have been inspected for movement, either through 14-day passes or for just movement out of infested zone. So moving to exotics. And when we get calls on exotics, you just never know what you're going to get into. And so this was a facility outside of Harper that had seals. And so they were moving some of these seals, and our inspectors had an opportunity to go do inspections because this is a non-discriminate warm-blooded parasite, right? So here we are. There's those guys apparently. So some of our inspectors got the opportunity to go there twice and look at those. But the take home on that is the exotics are a piece that aren't necessarily low risk. This is probably a pretty low risk situation, this picture, but you think about the ones that are existing on the range, and those inspections and that treatment are critical to make sure that we're not spreading the New World screwworms around through movements there. So at this point, we've inspected about 600 head of exotics for movement at this point. Don't have a picture on here for companion animals, but to kind of touch on those, transition to those for just a second. The other two cases out of the 45 were in dogs. One was a guard dog, livestock guard dog. They'd received some wounds and found out to be infested. And then another dog that just lived in outside and had a dermatologic situation where it became infested. So we do have obviously some cases in there, but again, those are pretty low risk situations for the most part. We are not concentrating our efforts on companion animals because there's not enough resources in the world for us to monitor and police all of that. We are working, continue to work with our private practitioners, veterinary practitioners, so that folks that encounter something like this are calling their vets and working through the treatment and prevention piece. And certainly encouraging anybody who's moving those animals to other states to contact those states, because a number of other states have put in requirements for entry for companion animals as well. So, so just in general, altogether, we've inspected about 52,314 head, and that's yesterday's number. So I don't know where we are today yet, but 38,799 of those for movements. And as Dr. Ben just mentioned, about 1,900 permits have been issued at this point in time. And again, the partnerships have been critical. We can't do this without our partners that have responded from other state agencies, and certainly not without the help and support of the producers involved, because as Commissioner Others has indicated, that's where all of this is happening, is on the ground at these premises. So transitioning to another section of the operation, when we talk about wildlife, and then certainly our partners at Parks and Wildlife have been critical. We had no idea going into this response how much contact information they have for landowners through cooperative programs and things that they're doing out in the country with all of these property owners and property managers. And so they pretty rapidly transitioned to be one of the primary, if not the primary point of contact for landowners in these infested zones, as they have been disclosed or set up. And as adjacent surveillance zones as well. And at this point, they've contacted more than 7,600 cooperators across the state, 2,800 of those in the infested zones. And another part of what they do through those relationships is they help secure sites for ground release chambers and traps, which is a critical component to the fly operations piece. So in addition, they've got some cameras set up on some of their properties and are triaging anything that anybody sends them to look at those digital images to help determine whether risk animals or not in terms of infestation. They've looked at a little over 7,500 animals at this point. They kind of float around 16 folks deployed at any given time. Most of those are virtually. They're looking at pictures somewhere out in wherever they're stationed to help do that surveillance. So, other wildlife partners include USDA Wildlife Services. They've brought in some technology like drones and cameras to do a lot of that. It's incredible the amount of acreage and hours they've spent flying in these infested zones looking for infested animals or potentially infested animals. They've actually helped find some infestation. They actually noted one of the sheep infestations that we had, and were able to contact that landowner and go back to that, find that sheep and find out that it was infested, and that cued us in to get some sterile flies in that area, which is again critical to our mitigation and response strategy or to eradicate this thing ultimately. So you can see the numbers there in terms of what they've looked at. 381,000 images. That's incredible to me that they've got staff all over the country that are sitting there glued to a computer, running through these images and assessing potential screwworm cases. So again, critical partners in terms of what we need to get information for the background for assisting that review process to ultimately release the infested premises and moving towards release of these infested zones. Transitioning to the fly operations. Again, this is pretty centric for USDA APHIS. Certainly, they're the ones that are the keepers of the flies and a critical component to what we're doing here. The kind of parts of the fly operation consist of sterile fly release, the surveillance piece that goes on in the background, and of course the lab support that's been touched on already. And so you can see the numbers there. Most of the flies at this point that are being aerially released are dispersed or coming from Moorfield, from that production facility down there, not the sterile fly production facility, but the dispersal center there at Moorfield. And so they have outpaced, the geography has outpaced them slightly. So that's where the ground release chambers come in up around Tom Green County, because that's too far for the airplanes to get the flies there in time. So the other piece of the fly operations, or another piece of the fly operations, includes the trapping piece. Lots of staff, USDA staff out doing that. 82 counties involved with 88 sticky traps right now. But that's not the only trapping that's going on. So a total of 5,098 trap inspections have occurred since June. And that includes the gator traps, where those are deployed just for a succinct amount of time or set amount of time to do active surveillance for fertile flies in the infested zones, and then pulled down, because we don't want to pull all our sterile flies into that system. And then, of course, the liver net traps as well, same deal. And that's labor intensive, because you have to sit there, somebody sits there with a net on top of that liver plate and watches for flies and catches those. So, back in the day, that surveillance was done with actually inflicting wounds, creating wounds on an animal, and monitoring it. Now they've figured out they can use some liver to do that with. So, anyway, all that said, total of 78,000, a little over 78,000 total submissions of flies to some laboratory, and we'll talk about the lab assets in just a second. Of those, 6,056 have been sterile flies. And so people ask, well, why aren't they catching the fertile flies in the environment? The good news is that's because the fertile fly still prefers a wound. And if there's a very low concentration or a population of fertile flies in the environment, they're going to preferentially go to wound versus one of the traps. And so that's a good thing that we're not catching fertile flies at this point. Talking about the lab assets real quickly. It's been touched on. We've got a number of lab assets that got stood up very rapidly in the response, to include the ARS staff and a deployment of an entomologist from National Veterinary Services Laboratory to Kerrville, along with an entomologist and some staff that came with the mobile animal disease lab that was set up there in Pleasanton at the region office, Pleasanton region office. And so that's been a tremendous asset to be able to get these samples, especially the high suspicion samples, to a lab in Texas and get a rapid identification. The other parts that go with the lab components include our partners at TVMDL, who are receiving some of the trap samples and going through those and helping ID those. And then Dr. Holmes, our entomologist, has hit the ground running and is certainly engaged in that process there at the Pleasanton lab too, and is going to start receiving some trap samples this week to assist with that process. She's also been pretty critical in helping triage as we get those calls, if we get pictures. Those can come to the Pleasanton office there, and she's helped look at some of those pictures, and if they're good pictures, help assign risk or suspicion level to help determine where do they need to go and how fast do we need to have an answer. So certainly been a critical component to that. And of course, low suspicion examples or samples continue to Ames, Iowa. And so just to give you an idea of what that looks like, mentioned that we've had about 78,000 fly trap samples that have been submitted, and that's kind of what that looks like in terms of where they've gone and what they're doing. And then you can't speak enough about the ongoing work that is being done by the rest of the agency and USDA to help do foreign animal disease investigations as we get these reports, especially reports associated with maggots, wound myiasis, maggots and wound. And so I've had 94 of those cases go to Kerrville, 84 go to the mobile lab in Pleasanton, 307 low suspicion cases go to NVSL for a total of 485 screwworm investigations at this point, and that's in 83 days. And so can't say enough about how much work is being done. Touched on the tactical epi just a little bit, and that's an N of one for the most part, but certainly have had other veterinarians going down there to support that role. It's really critical in terms of making sure that the infestations are being resolved and that process is working so that we can start the clocks for releasing premises and releasing the infested zones ultimately. And so there's a lot of work that goes with that, coordination with case managers to help do that work, and certainly appreciate Dr. James and his work and the rest of the epidemiology veterinarians. We've also had some veterinarians come in from other agencies Dr. Brian Bowl has done a stint and is chomping at the bit, as y'all can imagine, those of you that know him, to get back and try that again and be engaged. And we've also had, we've got some out-of-state veterinarians now engaged with that. And so one, not only help, but two, learn the process so that if they have to respond to this, they've got some firsthand knowledge. So trying to make sure I've got everything here. So I again, if there's any questions, be glad to address those. But again, can't say enough about the partnerships in across the board, whether it's us and other agencies, state or federal, and certainly the interactions and work we've had with producers has been critical and can't be done without the interactions and support of the producers out there that to realize the importance of this. And yes, it's an inconvenience. And yes, there are things that have to be done that are different, but it's critical to protecting the livestock industries at large. So.
Well, the infested zones, when they get released, and now there's a lot of stuff and it's based on life cycles. What's going to be done when temperatures get down low enough? Are we going to adjust those at all? I mean, let's say it was still in Tom Green and they have a freeze in October. I mean, is there any talk about looking into that, and is that going to affect those numbers at all?
That's a good question. I think the answer to that, and Dr. Ninja certainly jump in, or Dr. Mundy, but I think from the epidemiology standpoint, we'd have to look at exactly what it was in terms of temperature and how long, because remember, those pupa in the ground
Right.
are pretty tough. And so it's going to have to be cold. Cool will be great, but it's got to get pretty cold for a number of days before we can really have confidence that that impacted what's in the ground. I think the bottom line on all of that is based on the discussions we've had with USDA, that it's an ongoing conversation. And I think they're open to whatever the factors are that go into looking at that and adjusting those. So
USDA's got 3 or 4 New World Screwworm subject matter experts that we can consult with on a regular basis and definitely take their thoughts into consideration, and they'll be the ones that ultimately decide what continues as far as fly dispersal and trapping is in those areas.
all right, well, Bradley's coming next to talk about some of the development of the certified inspector program and our movement guidance out there. So Bradley, sir.
I knew I was short, but once you get to this podium, it kind of confirms it. So, good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. My name, as Dr. Lansford said, is Bradley Martin. And I have the privilege of serving as the field training manager here with the commission. It's a role that I've filled since January, and since then it's been an honor to be here and serve the Texas livestock industry. During my short time here, I've observed that there's always one question guiding us. It's how do we protect the livestock industry of Texas? Among the many efforts underway here at the commission to do just that, I'd like to highlight 2 of the resources that we've recently developed to answer that question. The first is our New World Screwworm Preparedness and Response Education course. The second is our NWS Animal Movement Guidance Tool, both aimed at protecting the Texas livestock industry by providing New World Screwworm education and transparent real-time movement requirement. So I'll begin this morning with the New World Screwworm course. The New World Screwworm course is offered as a free, self-guided online program accessible to anyone. It's hosted online by the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension and developed in partnership with the Texas Animal Health Commission, Parks and Wildlife Department, AgriLife, and USDA. Upon completion, participants receive a certificate, which also opens a path toward becoming a state certified NWS inspector. The course is delivered through narrated modular training, allowing participants to move through the content at their own pace. It covers 5 key areas: New World Screwworm biology and life cycle, surveillance and reporting procedures, species-specific inspection and treatment protocols, the roles of state and federal agencies, and movement permitting requirements. By the end of the course, participants walk away understanding NWS biology, its risk, and how it spreads. They learn to recognize, report, and inspect for signs of infestation and how to apply approved treatments and containment protocols. They are also equipped to navigate movement documentation and regulatory requirements. And importantly, completing the course and passing the final exam supports their eligibility to apply to become a New World certified inspector, which Rex will touch on here in a little bit. I just wanted to highlight how this developed. So our agency, in partnership with AgriLife, Parks and Wildlife, and USDA, had already begun early conversations about a course like this. But once NWS was detected in Texas, that work accelerated dramatically. What is remarkable is the timeline in which this was achieved. Content development began in earnest on Sunday, June 7th, and by the following Saturday, June 13th, just 6 days later, the course was live and available to the public. I want to recognize the incredible effort from the entire team in building the content, creating the course, and recording every module within that window. That kind of turnaround only happens through close collaboration and selfless dedication to the mission. Since launching the course, the response from the public has been significant and overwhelmingly positive. To date, the course has seen over 8,700 enrollments. From those enrollments, over 800 are now certified inspectors in our authorized personnel program, whom are serving the industry by conducting inspections and issuing certificates, all in an effort to maintain continuity of business. While version 1 was, by all accounts, a success, we're not resting on it. Version 2 is set to be released on September 1st. It'll incorporate feedback we've received, and it'll be building on the strong foundation that version 1 established. Now I'd like to turn to our second resource that we've established, our NWS Animal Movement Guidance Tool. Sometimes internally it's referred to as our livestock movement decision tree, so you might hear me use those terms. So the Movement Guidance Tool is an online resource that started small as a 2-page reference document maintained at the Incident Command Post to help guide early movement decisions in the field. As the response continued, we encountered new and more complex movement scenarios, and that reference document grew eventually to becoming an 11,000 word, 48-page document capturing every scenario encountered to date in detail. In an effort to make this information accessible and user-friendly to the public, the Commission partnered with AgriLife to transform that internal reference document into a public-facing decision tree application, which I'll walk you through today. To show how it works, I'll walk you through 2 examples using the tool. The first involves cattle originating from an infested zone and moving directly to slaughter. The second involves horses originating from an infested zone and moving to another premise outside the zone. In both cases, the tool asks 4 simple questions, and based on the answers, generates the specific guidelines that apply. So on the screen is the landing page. Anyone that navigates to the movement guidance tool will originate here. It asks several questions, all of which are based on what are you moving. So for this first scenario, we're going to select livestock or exotics. The second question is what type of livestock or exotic animals are you moving? So we've got several options, but for this walkthrough, we'll select cattle. Is the movement originating from an infested zone? Yes or no? In this scenario is yes. On the live side, we have a link, hyperlink, which will go back to the map that Aaron showed earlier, so that if someone is unsure of exactly where they lie, either within an infested zone and an adjacent zone such, they're able to see that clearly on the website. And so for this instance, we're going to say yes, they were within the infested zone. The last question is, what is the purpose of the move? And so you've got livestock market, moving to another premise, not for slaughter. The last one that we're going to select there is moving directly to slaughter. So once you've answered those questions, you've really dialed down into the requirements for that specific scenario. On the left-hand side of your screen, I know it's hard to see, but it does list each question and the answer that was received so that the user can clearly see what it is that they selected, just to confirm. Once they get to this screen, they have all of the movement requirements in black and white and what they need. Once you get to the last screen, you have an option to select a PDF or print a PDF. Once a user answers all the questions and receives their results, the tool generates a printable PDF, which is on the screen. The PDF captures the guidance version and revision date, which is important. We'll touch on that shortly. The exact date and time that it was generated, the full movement scenario that they selected, and the complete guidance. It is designed so producers can save, print, and keep it on hand as a reference. So our next scenario now, we'll look at horses. So again, we originate on the landing page and we are going to select horses. For this scenario, they're going to be moving to another premise. The next question is the destination premise inside an infested zone? For this scenario, we're going to say yes. Sorry, no. That was a mistake. Should be no. And then once we get to the final screen, again, we see the complete requirement for movement. Again, understand it's small, but at the top there is the requirements for moving one time out of the infested zone for a horse. As you move down, like Dr. Lansford touched on the horses. So there was a decision made that horses, since they are such a highly used, highly touched and cared after animal, that a 14-day pass was applicable, similar to how we do fever ticks. And so for those animals that are moving in and out of the infested zones on a daily basis for work or for whatnot, that bottom portion covers the requirements to receive a 14-day pass. Might have messed up something, Tom.
Give me 1 second, it might be on my.
Okay, sorry.
I see on the education program y'all set up that there is CEUs available for pesticide applicators. Is there any CE available for vets and LVTs when they take this?
I believe there was some conversation on that. Dr. Lansford says 4.
Yeah, it's approved for 4 or 5 hours, I think.
So, I mean, that would
Yes.
help. That always helps.
Yeah, no, it's a good motivator. Yep.
Great.
And it's free. Yep. Price is good. You don't have to travel.
So last slide here, one last feature worth highlighting. This tool also works offline. I know that's important. Once loaded, the guide is automatically saved to the user's device. So producers can use it even in areas with no signal, which matters a lot since many of the infested zones are in areas of Texas where there's very little service. An available offline indicator at the bottom there, it's pointed to by the blue arrow, confirms a current copy is stored locally on the device. And whenever the device reconnects, the tool automatically checks for and downloads any new published guidance. And speaking of new guidance, as our response continues to evolve, we have the ability to revise this movement guidance as needed with ease, ensuring the industry always has access to the most current information. So that covers the two resources I wanted to highlight today. Now I want to hand it over to Rex White, who will walk us through the New World Certified Inspector Program.
All right, good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the New World Screwworm Certified Inspector Program, sort of the second part of the training course that Bradley talked about. So this Certified Inspector Program, what this is, this program trains and certifies certain individuals to inspect animals and then issue certificates for those animals to leave an infested zone. So sort of a first of its kind sort of program that was developed. We did this in coordination with USDA and then in collaboration with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. As we were preparing for the screwworm, like Bradley said, we were sort of working on this program and sort of getting it developed. And then after the first detection, our leadership met with the governor's office, and they really loved the idea of sort of, having a program like this to train folks to kind of help with response. So we really accelerated the development of this program at their direction. And then with the scope of the amount of detections we had in that first week of the response, we really spent a long week working on this. And like Bradley said, it was basically up and running and launched within 10 days of that first detection. So it was a joint effort from a lot of departments here at the agency, as well as our folks over at AgriLife that worked with us on it. So just a little bit about the requirements to become certified and get certified inspector status. So you'll take the course that Bradley talked about, the preparedness and response education course. And then towards the end of that, if you choose to go on and apply to become a certified inspector, there's a comprehensive final exam at the end. You'll take that and pass it with at least a 94% or better, and then be part of an eligible group, which I'll talk about on the next slide for a second. And then you will submit a certified inspector application to the agency, which we'll process here. So this is the eligible groups of folks who can get certified status, at least at this time. Like Bradley mentioned, so the course is open for anyone to take. It's educational, it's a free course, and thousands of people have already taken it. The decision was made to make certain groups of people eligible to go on to become certified inspectors. That kind of prevents, sort of anyone in the world from just taking the course and then getting access to issue movement certificates for animals here in Texas. So not included in this list here is our authorized veterinarians. So the veterinarians in the state of Texas who are authorized to do large animal work, they, with the nature of their authorization, were granted access to issue these certificates. So they didn't need to take any supplemental training or anything. So when the program launched, they all got access to issue these certificates. So everyone here listed is folks that can take the course and then apply to become certified. So just a couple of those are, any other licensed veterinarians. So some veterinarians that are strictly small animal, they can take this course. Veterinary techs that are employed in that profession, extension folks at AgriLife, the Texas Racing Commission inspectors, and then a lot of local emergency management folks at the county and local level. So this is the list of folks who can become certified. On the certification process itself, so this is really how, my staff and the authorized personnel department, we sort of fit into this whole thing. We, kind of focus on education and outreach as our daily job. So we were kind of a natural fit for it. And then we have this with our authorized personnel program that we have here at the agency, authorizes all the veterinarians that do large animal work in the state. So we've got this database that has profiles for each of our authorized veterinarians. So we use that same database for our certified inspectors. So everyone that gets certified goes into this database, and that gives them access to the certificates, which we sort of already had this infrastructure in place on the second side with all the authorized veterinarians that are in this database get access to issue certificates of veterinary inspections for animals that are leaving the state. So we sort of already had this program in place for our veterinarians. So we were able to just kind of set this up as a parallel program along with our authorized program. So a little bit on the numbers to date here. So since the inception of this program on June 12th, we have certified 830 individuals to be certified inspectors. Like I said, this number does not include the 2,700 authorized veterinarians we have that have access to issue these certificates. And we also have about 100 Texas Animal Health Commission inspectors that have access. So in total, we've got about 3,600 individuals who can issue movement certificates for animals leaving an infested zone. 830 have gone through this program that we've certified. Each of these applications takes some time to process. We've got to, we do it manually. We check all their credentials and give them access to the system. Our staff spent a good amount of time, especially at the start of this program. You can see that there was a lot of interest initially when it rolled out. A lot of the Division of Emergency Management folks here in Texas, a lot of the AgriLife Extension folks, they all got certified immediately. A lot of staff at sale barns and markets, they all got certified. So it's sort of leveled off over the last couple of weeks, which has given us a little bit of time to sort of make updates to the system and make some improvements on that side. So I wanted to give just sort of a visual on what these certificates actually look like. So the folks who go through this certified inspector process and become a certified inspector, these are what they're getting access to issue. These are treatment movement certificates. And this is what the document looks like that lets an animal get inspected and then leave an infested zone. So you can, hopefully you can kind of see on there, it's got at the top left information about where that animal is starting, the address of that animal, where it's going to. It's got information about the shipper or the carrier of those animals if it's different than the owner of the animal. Towards the bottom, it's got the animal's information. So it's got their official ID number. It's got the age, sex, breed, color of that animal. And then the middle sections there, that's actually where the treatment goes. So most animals are going to require treatment before they leave. So this all kind of puts it all together and lets us put it into a database whenever these are issued, are the same database we actually use for interstate health certificates that veterinarians write. So that was kind of another piece of infrastructure we already had in place that we were able to kind of fit this into. So once these get generated, they go into this database, and our program records department uses this to track animal movements. And our epidemiology team can sort of use these in the database to track treatments to see what treatments are being used on different animals. I'm not going to give sort of a full demonstration of filling one of these out, but I did just want to kind of highlight a couple quick insights. So this is the kind of front screen whenever you go to log into the system. This will be wherever whether you create an account or log in, and then you'll put in all the animals information in on the first few slides. And then I did want to highlight this section here. So this is where you put the treatment in that the animal is receiving before movement. It's obviously one of the most important parts of this to try to limit the spread of the screwworm. So this lets us document everything that's going in these certificates. Our epidemiology and development team spent a good amount of time working on this and making it very helpful. So whenever you put a treatment in, for example, on the left here, if you're putting permethrin in was used as a treatment, a lot of these fields at the bottom, those are going to auto-populate based on that treatment's requirements. So a certified inspector doesn't have to try to figure all that stuff out. They can, that auto-populates whatever treatment they use, and then all they have to do is put in the serial number and the expiration date of that dosage. Once everything is entered, this is where you'll actually sign and issue these certificates. Whenever you go on here, whenever you push generate, it will send a copy to the Animal Health Commission. So we have it for our records. It'll send copies to all the email addresses that you put in the certificate. So the owner of the animal, if the animal is being sold to the new animal owner, will get a copy of this. You can put an additional email address in there for extra record keeping. So a lot of the veterinarians that'll issue these, they'll put like a clinic's email address here. So there's an extra copy on hand for them. I did want to highlight just a couple of sort of enhancements and updates that have been made to this program just over the past 2.5 months. And I did quickly want to just acknowledge our development team that works in the IT department here at the agency. It's a team of 4 people. They put in a lot of hours trying to basically getting this program up and running on the technology side, as well as, maintaining all of our other databases and things that they do day to day. But they made a very intuitive system, a very user-friendly system, and they're very receptive to field staff that are actually using these certificates. So if they call and they want updates and things to this system, they'll spend time to make those. A couple of the big updates that have already happened to the system, we added some new ways that you can put animals into the certificates. So as you can imagine, if you've got a big shipment, if you've got a trailer full of 10 or 12 steers or something, they all have a unique ID number. They've all got, maybe different colors and different sexes and things. So they've added a bunch of different new ways that you can add animal their certificate to make it a little bit easier for users. They've added ways that you put destination addresses in. So one of the sort of the kinks we had to work out was working with other states to make sure that they would receive these certificates as a treatment document. this is not a valid certificate for an animal to leave Texas and travel to another state. That would still need to be done by an accredited veterinarian with a CVI. So we, make sure, work with other states to make sure they're still getting their CVIs from veterinarians. We've added a search function on here, which I'll talk about in the next slide. Our training team has recently just finished up a very comprehensive SOP for using this system. So just this week, we've got that added to the system. Whenever you log in, you can access that at any time to get some kind of help if you need any pointers. And then, like Bradley mentioned, we've also got the 14-day pass that was recently added. So this will be for equine and exhibition livestock. We knew those animals would need to be moving, semi-frequently. So we're hoping that that's helpful for a lot of folks that are needing to move animals, especially during show season and things like that. This is sort of just a kind of a big example of one of the, some of the updates that have happened. So at the top right there, you can sort of see that was what the dashboard, kind of your central workspace whenever you're doing these certificates. That's what it looked like when the program launched. You could essentially start a new certificate for a single animal movement. And then there was just a long list of certificates that you had either started or that you had submitted. So now that bottom left one, this is sort of what it looks like today. If you log on, you can either start a new certificate for an animal just leaving an infested zone or for a 14-day pass. And then on the right there, there's that search function. You can click on that and it brings up a whole bunch of filters. So if, a certified inspector needs to go in there and look and see, I need to find all the certificates I issued, on this date or for this county or whatever, they can go put those filters in and find it. So if someone needs to go in and, I need to find all the sheep that I issued certificates for leaving Sutton County on these dates, you can put those in there and it'll pull up all the certificates that you issued. So that's sort of a kind of an overview of the Certified Inspector Program. It's been a long 2.5 months, and we're hoping to keep making improvements. I just want to say that, like Bradley mentioned, and I mentioned that this took a lot of teamwork to get this done, a lot of, work in the agency and with other, our counterparts at AgriLife. I think it's been a pretty effective system. We've had other states reach out to us and show interest in kind of how we developed it and have asked for sort of how they can implement this into their own sort of program if God forbid, screwworm gets to other states. So we'll continue to make improvements as we can. And I think that's all I've got for you guys. So I'm happy to take questions. Yes, sir.
Can you go back to the slide of those who can actually be certified?
Absolutely.
As I look at that list, and once again, I'm going to the ranch.
Absolutely.
Because that's where it all takes place. And let's just take, for instance, if we had a screwworm outbreak in Baylor County, Seymour, Texas. And you've got multiple thousand heads. You're not talking about 10 or 12 in the total load. You're talking about 8 or 10 loads of yours leaving. As I look at the list of people that can be certified, I see a bottleneck potentially happening in areas where there are a large number of livestock being moved. And my brain goes to New Mexico. If you've got cattle in New Mexico, you've got to wait on a brand inspector before you can come move your cattle or your sheep or goats or whatever the case may be. Is the eligibility, are there going to be enough people, do you feel like, that can be certified in any one area so that you don't slow down the speed of commerce? If you've got 10 people shipping the same day and they're all waiting, that's the question.
Yeah, so when we got this group kind of list together, that we're still talking regularly about this eligibility list. We decided to make it sort of a rollout program. So a couple of groups have been added to this over time, and we're kind of always talking about who can be added. Right now it's stayed at this level because inspection needs are being met. So if it gets to a point like that it gets out of hand or something, we can always add more groups to this and add more folks to the inspector list.
We're just thinking on the order of being proactive.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So a couple things on that, not to jump in, but I will. This is very flexible. And so the encouragement that we're giving everybody is get through the process and get the certificate so that when we get to the point we need, or if, hope not when, but if we get to the point we need to turn that on, everybody's got their certificates. And so that's been an ongoing discussion among several of us about where do we draw those lines? You know, what size of operation, what level of management, all of those considerations that we would need to look at. The other part of that is that we are in the process of doing a little bit of wargaming on that side after some of the work group meetings and some of those to look at some of the areas where if we had an infestation or an infested zone in a cattle dense area with big markets, what would it take to try to do that? And so those are some of the things that we're certainly trying to think about, but any and everything that anybody else has as a worst case scenario that we can think of, we need to be kind of planning.
Follow-up question, Dr. Langford, is who pays for it?
For what?
The inspector goes out, inspects 800 head of yearlings.
So if it's anybody attached to our deployments or our response, then that's part of what we do. We don't charge for those inspections. Our hope in all of this is that certified inspectors would not charge for this. The other
Big hope.
it is, right? And the other part of that is part of that kind of stems on the model that we have to live with for veterinarians too, that they're going to charge for their services to do this. And so we don't have a way to regulate that offhand. And so we hope that people don't do that, but certainly we understand that they may. And the goal is to try to provide enough services out there to facilitate the continuity of business.
Well, I mean, just the reality is, I'm a servant, have a servant's heart, but diesel's over $4, $4 or $5 a gallon. So, I mean, there's going to be some charge to the producer, and that's going to be an issue that arises. Just to be proactive in the thought process, and
Yes, sir.
obviously you already are.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you all.
I think I get to round it out. So I'm Janine Coggish. I'm the General Counsel of Texas Animal Health Commission, but because we are a small agency, I get to wear lots of hats. And so one of it is sort of thinking long-term about what does this look like in the future? And so we have lots of, lots of things we've learned in the last 80-something days. But one of the things we know for sure is the pace that we're moving and the amount of effort that each of our individual employees are contributing to this effort is not sustainable. And so one of the things we're looking for is building out a sustainable program that can see us through full New World Screwworm eradication. So there's a couple of things that prevent us from immediately, after this year, it's not once we're done this year, it's done forever. We have to build up a sufficient supply of sterile flies so that we can have true eradication in Texas. Until that point, Texas is the front lines of all of these ectoparasites from Mexico. So we've been battling cattle fever tick since 1893. Now we've added New World Screwworm. So one of the things we are looking to as an agency is building out a programmatic response to deal with all of these potential ectoparasites. So that's going to be one of the big asks this upcoming legislative session. It is going to be to add about 118 FTEs, full-time positions, to our response efforts. So this will include a design that's based off the cattle fever tick model, where we have regionalized, localized teams in the area built to respond. And so we'll follow the border area geographically to kind of set up those geographic areas. But the idea is that we'd have sufficient number of inspectors, sufficient number of experts and veterinarians in each of those regions so that we don't have to pull people from Texarkana down to the response area. This will help bolster not only the New World Screwworm response until we're in that full eradication, but it will also help improve some of our response efforts in our cattle fever tick eradication program and also start to look at these other potential ectoparasites that we've had our eye on out in, as seeing other states deal with them. Of note, of course, is the Asian longhorn tick, which Dr. Dinges has reported on for well over 2 years to the commission. So we think that's going to help kind of maintain that border security that we have been, that the rest of the country relies on Texas to provide. The other thing that we keep on hearing repeatedly through the other state animal health officials is, I don't think we could do it the way Texas does it. And so I think it's also important that we recognize that we are sort of the national leader in animal health and sort of setting that precedent that we will do this correctly and we'll do what we can to protect our industries in Texas. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we are nearly at $25 billion in animal agriculture. And so if putting in this extra work helps protect those industries, that's something that I think we feel as an agency we're ready to do. So that's sort of what we hope to look for in the future. That will be the next legislative session, which kicks off next year. In the meantime, what we've done to sort of bridge the gap for our wonderful employees. And so right now we are at 228 full-time employees at the agency. I cannot name a single employee at our agency that has not had some work with or some connection to New World Screwworm. Everyone, I mean, obviously Dr. Dinges, Dr. Lancer from the very top to all of our entry-level employees has had their hand in dealing with New World Screwworm. IT, finance, staff services, the obvious departments, epidemiology, field work, and stuff like that are easy ones, but not a single department hasn't had work related to New World Screwworm. And as a testament to the amount of effort and the public servants that we have at this agency, that they were willing to put in those extra hours. So that work was filled in through a lot of overtime hours. A lot of our employees have worked very, very long weeks. I think my staff alone, they were working sort of an average about 84 hours a week. We've been able to do it through help from other state partners. One of the additional things we had to help bridge this gap is we did get some cooperative funding from USDA. They gave us about $2.86 million or $2.68 million. That's going to allow us to hire 15 temporary positions. Those positions have already been posted. We've actually already hired some of those folks. So 3 emergency management professionals, 2 epidemiological professionals, and then 10 additional inspectors, livestock inspectors. So that helps take a little bit of that burden off of our regular agency staff. Unfortunately, this incident has highlighted how much work it takes to sustain a response like this. And the bigger unfortunate thing is our regular work hasn't gone away. So we still have to monitor for other diseases. I know I'd be talking to Dr. Monday. We talked about, okay, we got a new case in this county. Oh, by the way, we also have an EHM suspect here. So it's sort of, you've got to be able to balance all those things. So we think building a programmatic response will help us achieve that and keep us as the leaders of the nation when it comes to animal agriculture. All right. And I think that's going to conclude our screwworm presentations. Thank you for your patience with this, and I'll turn it back to.
The 118, what was the cost? I think 118 people.
It's gonna be about 30 million. It's a little less than that, like 27 million over the course of the 2 years. So the first year, the investment has a lot to do with equipment, making sure that we have sufficient number of fleet vehicles so people can actually move around. Unfortunately, you can't go rent a one-ton truck from Hertz. You have to have that available on fleet in order to haul some of the equipment we need to haul. So a lot of that's going to be a capital investment. And then after that, we're looking at about $11 million a year to kind of sustain that workforce. And the idea that we have, we modeled this after past disease programs. So cattle brucellosis was a main one. If you think about the size of the agency during cattle brucellosis days, it was much larger. As cattle brucellosis became eradicated through natural attrition of employees, the agency was able to size itself right. We think while this is going to be a active response. We'll need to maintain that staff until we achieve full eradication in Mexico, because while New World screwworms in Mexico, it's always going to remain a threat to Texas. But once that happens through sterile fly eradication program, we do think we'll be able to kind of remove some of this personnel or move them to other programs that need attention.
I guess that leads me to my question. I mean, you won't earmark these people so that, I mean, there can be a lot of shuffling and all of a sudden the department's grown to 350 people and the screwworm is gone and it never goes back down.
Right. And
so how do you, I mean, because there's going to be a time when this is going to go away. It's not going to be here forever.
And that's the hope.
Yeah, no,
That
it
is
will.
absolutely
It's already happened before. It will.
Yeah.
It will.
And that's why we're sort of modeling it after cattle brucellosis, where we did have an uptick in the number of inspectors we needed to handle the work. As it became eradicated, we do have attrition that happens just naturally through retirements, people seeking other work. And we just will choose not to rehire.
Talk about almost doubling the size of your department.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's basically it would be it's a half of our agency.
Where are you gonna put all these people?
So one of the things we do have to do in the next year, regardless of whether or not this is find a new place, our lease is running up at this building. So central office will probably inevitably have to move, but then this is also following more of our regional structure. So a lot of our field responders would live in their areas that they serve, like we do now with our livestock inspectors. So they live and work in the same communities. They'll report to regional offices, but we don't have to have the office space for all of those employees because all of their work is out in the field. So unlike most organizations, because we are so field heavy in our response, we don't necessarily need the office space, we need the vehicles, because a lot of people work out of their vehicles. And so that's kind of where the big ask is going to be.
As we grow and move forward, and there are three things that come to my mind. Do we need to have Starlink installed in our pickups for the remote areas? I certainly would recommend that you look into Starlink so that we no longer have to say in a meeting, there are remote areas in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Starlink covers that. It's being used in South Texas, and it is very, very efficient. It is a little bit more costly, but I want my people in the field in these remote areas to be able, for us to be able to keep up with them and they be able to communicate back to the.
Yeah, one of the things that's been really great with this response is, so we've been partnering with Texas Division of Emergency Management, and they have actually loaned us Starlink devices. So we actually have an opportunity to do some real world testing. So I know Tom and the IT department is looking into how, so now we have a real world scenario where we're taking this equipment. Does it actually serve the purposes that it needs to serve? Does it give us those connectivities, especially when you're talking about big bend area?
Right.
There is no cell service out there.
I know.
Yeah. And so we have those devices that we're presently testing. So yeah, that's definitely something I know our IT department is keen to look and see how usable and how valuable that would be for the future.
Second thing, is it time and do we need to have our own laboratory again? And the reason I ask this, the work that we do here is highly respected. Our laboratory in the past was highly regarded. And do we at the time need to look at developing again and having, since we're going to move, and it could be at another location, I'm just asking the question. Do we need to look at having our own laboratory?
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that we've thought about in terms of, making sure that we're efficient with our, lab testing, but we've partnered really well with TVMDL. I just don't see that as something that's going to be the most efficient use of state resources. Now, one of the things that we would like to do is build up an ectoparasite lab, so we can do ectoparasite identifications, but all of the disease diagnostics would still happen at TVMDL. So it's more of a more specific focus kind of laboratory need is what we're thinking about trying to focus on as a start.
The third thing, because we're gonna be growing, is, and I have been in the past, looking at having a COO.
That is part of our request.
That is what?
That's going to be part of our request.
Okay.
Was what you're talking about an agency that is over 300 employees.
Yes.
The executive staff is we need additional executive staff to manage that number of employees. And so part of the ask also comes in with that infrastructure and administrative support to support the field personnel. So it's not just going to be field personnel and then, current management structure has to support that. We do need to be mindful of a staff to management ratio that's appropriate. And so this will involve bringing in additional veterinary support, additional management, additional HR professionals, additional communication professionals, additional IT professionals, accountants. I mean, it's sort of, in order to support that number of employees, you need that infrastructure underneath. So yeah, that is something that is part of the consideration.
Good. And the job description is going to be very important on that COO.
Okay, well, if we get it, I'll call you.
And I just appreciate all the energy. I think considering all that's going on, that you're in control of things. You're open to suggestions. Your leadership is tremendous in how you have handled this. And the other thing I like that you have said is we are the gold standard for the rest of the United States. And that pleases me greatly. And that the bottom line there is all of the hard work that you're putting into this, and you're also conscientious of your mission, and you're doing a job well done.
Thank you. And yeah, and it is other states telling us how impressed they are with us. So that means a whole lot because it's hard to see sometimes when you're in the thick of it, but it is really good to get that outside feedback.
Yes. I'm congratulations. I'm very proud of it.
Thank you. All right, turn it back over to Dr. Ditches.
Thank y'all very much. I assume that concludes.
That's it. For now.
I thought that a couple
Does
of.
anybody need a break?
I'm a producer and I kind of.
So we have public comments at the end.
We'll have public
and
comments at the end, yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Next item on the agenda will be a report of the executive director, Dr. Dean.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. And we return the meeting to the regular program now. I won't say anything about screw arms in my report, but I do want to say how much I appreciate the staff we have here in the central office, in the field. Couldn't respond to this ectoparasite without each and every one of them. And just can't say enough about their hard work and efforts over the last 2.5 months. So certainly appreciate that. So I'll keep my remarks short and to the point. My report here, start off talking about the veterinary medical education loan repayment programs. First one being the federal program, the Veterinary Medical Loan Repayment Program, VLMRP. That's a program that was not funded in fiscal year 2025. We applied for eight shortage area. We were awarded 8 shortage areas in that application period. And those carried over until to the 2026 application period. So veterinarians around the state were able, out of those shortage areas, were able to apply back in January through March of this year. The USDA is looking at those applications now, and those awards will be awarded coming up in September of this year. So for the 2027 cycle of the VLMRP, Texas Animal Health Commission staff are working now to gather data and identify shortage areas in the state. THC will continue forming a working group to get input from private and public practitioners, industry stakeholders, veterinary schools, and other university systems to identify what areas of the state are most underserved with veterinary services. The shortage area nominations for fiscal year 2027 cycle will be submitted by Texas Animal Health Commission in November of this year. Moving to the Rural Veterinary Incentive Program, that is a state-funded veterinary medical education program. The funding was approved in the amount of $2.5 million for fiscal year 2026 and $2.5 million for fiscal year 2027 by the 89th legislature. For the fiscal year or the fiscal year 2026 cycle, we had 91 applications submitted. The veterinary VMR, the RVIP committee awarded 22 applicants with roughly $2.8 million in veterinary student loan debt payments. So you can see the breakdown in the written report there that I've submitted to you. The Texas Animal Health Commission Legal Department is currently working with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board on how they intend to set up the agreements for this program and distribute those funds. So that's ongoing. For fiscal year 2027 cycle, the plan is to have the 2027 cycle posted and announced by mid to late September. Staff are working now to update the 2027 application and scoring rubric. We will set up a meeting with the RVIP committee for their input on this scoring rubric and application process. And then we plan to have applications open for the RVIP program in October and November of this year. Moving on to the cattle fever tick update on the national front there. So just to update you on the cattle fever tick treatment field trials involving prenamectin and using the long range product specifically. A series of research projects seek to evaluate whether repeated dose regimens of injectable prenamectin can be used to effectively control cattle fever tick infestations in areas with high tick pressure due to infested wildlife exposure. The third study to be carried out is the residue study. The eprenamectin residue study is designed to determine prenamectin V1 residue levels in multiple tissues following multiple doses of injectable prenamectin. This study is being executed by the Texas A&M Department of Animal Science there in College Station. The contracted study will run a minimum of 280 days. I believe it's on the books for 301 days. The study initiated on July the 28th of this year, with the first dose of long range being administered per manufacturer instructions. The targeted conclusion of this study will be in May of 2027. So with this information, the researchers intend to use conditions at the Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge to further evaluate the indicated multi-use prenamectin treatment protocols in a population of cattle managed to mimic common practices in South Texas. So just an update on the prenamectin trial, where we stand with that today. We've discussed a little bit about the Asian longhorn tick in pretty much every commission report that I've given over the last 2.5, 3 years. The monthly update responsibilities for the Asian longhorn tick have transitioned from the USDA APHIS to the medical and veterinary entomology team at the University of Tennessee within this last year. To date, the Asian longhorn tick has been discovered in 27 states and in Washington, D.C. The tick has been found in northeast Oklahoma and northwest Arkansas, and no new states have recorded Asian longhorn ticks since April of this year. It was found on a dog in the state of Alabama. So affected states continue to use producer education and outreach to mitigate the risk of introductions. Importantly, field surveillance of affected sites support efficacy of producer managed controls. Management practices include spraying, air tagging of animals, mowing of pastures, and judicious applications of acaricides resulting in reduced reported tick populations. Texas Animal Health Commission continues to assess practicality of regulatory action in the future. THC's entomologist is restoring the once robust tick surveillance program across Texas and participates in this monthly call, the National Exotic and Invasive Vector Species Stakeholder Call. They had a meeting yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I was able to attend that meeting here virtually. So the THC ectoparasite laboratory is operational and will support all ectoparasite surveillance and response efforts. This program will continually monitor livestock industry and the potential for introduction of the exotic tick. The Asian longhorn tick is a vector of Tyleria orientalis genotype Ikeda, a protozoan parasite that causes severe disease in cattle. The United States Animal Health Association has established a new subcommittee on Tyleria, and the subcommittee will begin to work to advance the science, understanding, and mitigation of this disease. So look forward to that this fall at the USAHA meeting. Just to update you quickly on high-path avian influenza, as far as the poultry are concerned, the outbreak started in February of 2022. To date, there have been over 208 million birds affected, 2,240 premises in 50 states and Puerto Rico. Texas has had a total of 20 HPI positive premises since February 2022, to include 3 commercial flocks, with the total number of birds affected over 2.155 million. The latest being a backyard non-poultry flock in Carson County in the eastern part of the panhandle there in 2026, January 2026. On the livestock and dairy high-path front there, there have been 20 states affected to date, with 1,175 premises confirmed to be affected. Texas, starting in 2024, we had 27 premises confirmed for high-path avian influenza in the dairy industry. 2025, there were 3 premises that were confirmed, but those were bank samples from the 2024 fiscal year. In 2026, we have had 7 premises identified. As far as 2026 goes, 6 of the 7 premises are in the same county, relatively close proximity. The initial case had been directed or had a direct epi and diagnostic sequencing connection to an Idaho dairy. Idaho has had over 176 affected premises to date. So Dr. Mundy will talk more about that in her presentation here in just a minute, but referring to the National Milk Testing Strategy, Texas began the National Milk Testing Strategy in April of 2025 by conducting plant silo monitoring. The Department of State Health Services administered the pasteurized milk ordinance established by the FDA and conducts silo sampling for the state of Texas. Dr. Mundy did submit the Texas Animal Health Commission's Milk Testing Strategy 2025 annual work report to the USDA earlier this year. Using those results in the report and the continued testing in 2026, the USDA changed the HPAI status of the state to unaffected on March the 27th of this year. This change in status eliminated the testing requirements for Texas origin lactating dairy cattle prior to moving interstate. And the Department of State Health Services continues the silo sampling and is currently in round 8 for this year, with over 1,054 samples being submitted. However, the state's unaffected status is short-lived, with dairy showing clinical signs in late May, which was tied to the recently imported cattle from Idaho. And then we've had several positive silo investigations beginning in early June. But given these events, the silo testing strategy has shown to be effective in identifying affected dairy. So with that, I'll let Dr. Mundy go into detail on some of these detections this year. But with that, that will conclude my report. And we have the waivers and variances that I believe are actionable items. So thank you.
Okay, are we doing the waivers right now? Okay, so I need a motion to approve those waivers and variances.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the waiver request variances as presented today.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the waivers and variances. Is there any discussion or are there any questions? Not signify by saying aye. Opposed by no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next item on the agenda will be field animal health programs and disease traceability activities. Dr. Lansford again.
Thank you. I will not make the same statement about New World School Wonders. I'll try to be brief, although y'all know I'm not known for my linguistic austerity very much. So I'll try to be brief though. So jumping into animal disease traceability, animal health programs, emergency management, our ectoparasite preparedness and defense program, quality assurance and records. What I'm looking for here. Lost my place. Program records. Thank you. Program records piece. Looking at ADT, those numbers are very similar to what they looked like last quarter. And so I'm not going to dwell on this other than to say that the next commission meeting, we can anticipate that those numbers are going to look different based on the number of tags and premises that have been kind of engrossed by New World screwworms. And so certainly we're getting our tags out to those producers, the no-cost tags, and a lot of those premises are now receiving premise IDs on top of that. So just kind of give you an idea. One thing I will mention about the tags is that we still have a large supply in stock. And so certainly we are not short RFID tags. We have ordered additional OCB tags. Our allotment for FY26 is in the process of being ordered. But again, we have a fair number in stock as well. So not worried about running out anytime soon. The related to scrapie, let me go back. Scrapie flocks, again, same comment. Because of where we are with New World screwworms, we're going to see a pretty marked increase in the number of premise IDs, scrapie flock registrations, and then of course tags. And so we have actually had to order 40,000 additional sheep and goat tags as a result of the response. News tags, the metal tags, there has, as reported last commission meeting, was some discussion about the orange OCV news tags and their resurrection for use in some of the states and in and around Yellowstone. We still have a lot and are pushing the use of RFID OCV tags to our veterinary community. However, the silver tags did not enjoy the same resurrection. And so we are down to the last 3,000 in storage. So once those are gone, whatever's in the country is what's left, and we're not going to get any more at that point. So just wanted to give an update on that because I know there are some markets that are tagging all the adult cattle and utilizing those tags, and we appreciate that effort. One other comment about tags is there was a grant program for the swine industry for some no-cost tags. Of course, our integrators in the Panhandle are using group IDs and their normal pins to identify those swine in those channels. We do have a very large and robust exhibition swine industry here in Texas. Most of those pigs get an official ID when they go through the state validation process, but we did receive 50,000 swine tags. So if somebody is looking for no-cost swine tags, they can call us and we can set them up. Moving on to stakeholder outreach, and we continue our efforts, Matt does, to get that technology into the hands of the veterinarians. And so you can see the map there, what that looks like. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that other than to say that I greatly appreciate our ADT staff going to events and giving up weekends to participate and be there to promote ADT and answer questions about all things related to the agency. As you can imagine, here lately, there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of need to be up to speed on New World screwworms so that folks can ask questions and they can answer those when they come by. Moving into emergency management, prior to the event, we did have the opportunity for some of our staff to participate in the state emergency management conference. And, but right after that, they got back in time to start New World Screwworm response. I think a couple of things there to touch on is just to the cooperative agreement money, the 2 emergency management staff that we're getting hired, that's going to be critical and certainly will give us some more depth in our incident management teams, our response structure there, and get us some more people out in the field as well. So give us a break to do some other things there. So on upcoming events related to emergency management, of course, New World Screwworm response will be ongoing. And we continue to monitor other disasters, potential disasters in terms of wildfires and tropical weather events and things like that with our other response partners if we need to help respond there. Last thing I'll mention there is there's an opportunity for our secure food supply staff to go to a training and a national meeting in Kansas in September, and we're gonna send our folks up there to continue those efforts in secure food supply training and outreach as well. Appreciate Rebecca and her staff getting these numbers put together, because there is no way I could come up with any of these numbers, but a few things related to program records and quality assurance. Just a reminder that we're still continuing down the road of transitioning to all electronic CVIs. That started in January of this year, where we made the announcement that we would not be accepting, or we needed to get officially electronic CVIs from other states. And so there's some numbers there in there that show that where we are on that. About 11% in the first quarter of the CVIs were paper, and now we're down to 8%. That transition continues as of June 1st. Since the last commission meeting as of June 1st, we're no longer selling paper certificates. So if somebody's going to do a new certificate in the state of Texas, if they don't have paper on hand, they have to use one of the electronic platforms. And so that, of course, is the goal. End goal there is to get to January of next year, where we go completely electronic for not only stuff coming into the state, but any health certificate that gets written within the state or for movement out of the state. So that's where that goes. And it's certainly that process is aided by the number of states, 1 around us, but 2 across the board, as Texas has made that started that transition. A number of other states that have kind of followed suit there to start the transition to eCVIs is market. So that's the day and age of the paper health certificate is coming to an end in the not too distant future. So other things there, just wanted to commend Rebecca and her staff in the back there and what they've done, not only from keeping up with movements and getting information into the system for assistance with New World Screwworm movements and documentation and data there, but certainly the quality assurance group is they've helped tackle some of the training needs and getting folks up to speed, as we've got new admins in some of the region offices in getting them and their capabilities in TexCore established. In the middle of all of this, of course, we have our usual animal health programs going on. There's the numbers there. I'll let you kind of peruse those. Certainly our field staff continue to do a great job of doing all the normal work on top of responding to New World Screwworms. A few things here to note. Certainly there's some discussion about, what does this look like? Where we're going to put if we get all these extra people? I think as we look at offices and office spaces, what our staff and team have done with the Pleasanton Region office and the Willacy office that's under construction are good models for providing places for workstations so that inspectors can come in. And certainly as we look at the fever tick model in Willacy County, and that is under construction, and they say we're going to be in there by November 1st. Certainly a big portion of that office is a big workspace so that inspectors can come in, hot desk, have a space to be able to connect to the technology, so to speak, and do all the reporting and things that they need to do without having necessarily dedicated office spots, but a place to come in, work, then go back to the field and do what they need to do. So that's kind of an update on the region offices there. From a staffing update, we continue to have veterinary vacancies. We've got the director position still in the Panhandle. Hopefully, as with one of our other exceptional items, we'll have a chance to rectify that moving forward. I do want to welcome Dr. Kelly Cochran into the fold of veterinarians as a field veterinarian that has joined the Giddings region. She lives right there on the edge of the Giddings region by the Pleasanton region, and so she's kind of doing some double duty with both of those region offices to help out there. So as already been mentioned, we are at the highest level of filled positions that I can ever remember. And that is certainly a testament to the work that is being done by our staff, management staff, to get folks hired, get through that process, and then the support from HR to make all of that work and not let any of us get in trouble while we're doing it. So certainly appreciate all of that. So any questions on any of the inspection numbers there? We'll move on to the next piece there. I want to touch on the training department. Bradley came up and gave some comments related to some of the things that he's been working on with New World Screwworm. Cannot say enough about that staff as they have transitioned into developing these SOPs and developing training on paper in formats that ultimately will be online for our staff to get up to speed on all of these, not only New World Screwworm, but everything else that we do. Their use of technology and the ability and rapidity at which they have developed these SOPs is astounding to me. I don't know enough about the technology to be even dangerous, but it is amazing to me what they've gotten accomplished in very short order, and I greatly appreciate all the work on that. And they continue to look at agency training needs and identify and develop those solutions as they move forward. So lastly, I'm done with my slides. So lastly, from an ectoparasite preparedness and defense program, last commission meeting, Dr. Renee Holmes, our entomologist, that was her first day with the agency, and that was in May. And so now we are 83 days into screwworm response, and she has been a tremendous asset in moving forward with not only New World Screwworm, but reestablishing our leadership and renown in ectoparasite surveillance. And so there's more work to do, but since she's come on board, we've got an ectoparasite lab up and going. We've got equipment in there. She's using that equipment. She's taking over identifying or doing the tick ID from South Texas. She's in the process of refurbishing, and we're going to get our statewide surveillance, ectoparasite surveillance program back up and going. Now we have an entomologist, and she's in the process of hiring some support staff. We've got hopefully some more support staff coming to continue to build that program and that capability. And so certainly she is making the improvements and kind of identifying improvements that we need to make on that lab down there to get it hopefully up to maybe BSL-2 levels, so that we can do some identification of ectoparasites that are of greater concern and have greater biosecurity needs. So with all that said, wanted to touch on just a couple other things there that she has also become our completed proficiency testing for adult fly and larvae, New World Screwworm larvae identification. And so she's engaging in that process and certainly will serve as an asset there. Other things that is going on in that program, and certainly provides the basis for why we need to continue to grow that program, ectoparasite preparedness and defense, is she's beginning to transition to take over the training programs for ectoparasite in collaboration with our training department, working on interagency collaboration with our partners at A&M entomology there, certainly TVMDL as we work through a response there, and then certainly also some of the reporting pieces that assist with the EPI department in that front. And then lastly, taking over the oversight of the aprinamectin studies as well. So certainly some delegation and some spreading out of responsibilities and duties, and it's in great hands. We look forward to being able to grow that capability moving forward. So I think that's everything I had, and unless there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nancy. Next item on the agenda will be a presentation of disease and epidemiology activities. Dr. Jesse Lundy.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna hang out right here. Can y'all hear? Wonderful. All right, to start, Hi, Path AI. I got too excited last time. Sorry, I jinxed us. So in livestock right now, Texas is sitting at 37 confirmed detections. One of those is a repeat, but the epi behind it, they're not connected. It's two different introductions. Not necessarily a biosecurity risk that we see going on the poultry side, going on with that one so far. So the most recent clinical detection is June 19th. And we've had 3 cases confirmed in the last 30 days. And so interesting bit about that, but we'll go into that in detail. So our first case that brought high path AI in livestock back home after its 2-year tour around the country was in a fairly large dairy in the Amarillo region, and they did report clinical cows. And so they reported it to us. We saw that it was consistent with the case definition. It was confirmed that epi in that was very quickly tied to an animal movement, a very recent animal movement from Idaho. This was the same B313, so it's not a new spillover event. And the sequencing that came back is consistent with it being a new introduction to the state from Idaho to Texas. So epi lined up, the sequencing lined up, what they thought happened lined up. They had managed to test out and they were released on the 21st of August. So our second case was actually subclinical when we found it. So we actually have 2 programs that we've run. What we originally put together in 2024, where our producers were reporting to us, we were working closely with TVMGL. And then the National Milk Testing Strategy is the SILO program, kind of a backup fail-safe surveillance program in addition to clinical sign ones. And what we've proven recently is they both work. And so this was actually detected, it was subclinical at the time through SILO testing. It was our first SILO investigation. They are under a hold order, and the sequencing on this was interesting, but also, we're going to have a virus. It's good news because it showed directionality from the first one to the second one. So we know that this is a squirrely virus. It's really hard to lock down, especially in the dairy industry with the biosecurity concerns and how everything's overlapping. People are responsive to what we're telling them and the suggestions, and we're doing a pretty good job. We got this before. The important thing is it shows directionality from where Idaho contaminated us, and then it goes from there to this new dairy. So we didn't turn the tap on. We don't have virus pouring on it. This is just follow up from that original one. And so I think we can smolder it out. Not going to go into more detail because I already jinxed this once this year. So this 3rd and 4th cases that we found were the same. They show directionality straight from that first case and no new out-of-state introductions. We're starting to get into some various different size dairies. These were clinical. They were reported to us through the vet and the diagnostic lab to us. But right when they were reported, we also got the SILO identification. So that they were up in the same 7-day period. They were found both ways. And then our most recent one was SILO. These are all subclinical. So this is why these cases, the identification period does not match with our most recent clinical signs. So we are going to have to use that SILO program and pay attention to it to make sure that we're confident that we are in a free status when we go to reapply for free status. And the other states have seen this too. So they have a subset of these dairies that are subclinical and are found. The one that we originally found that was subclinical did develop clinical signs later. This is rarely recent, so we'll see what happens with it, or fairly recent. But that's what we have going on right now with the high path. I'm going to roll into National Milk Testing Strategy because the universe has decided it's going to mush them all together anyway. So DISH has continued doing all of the sampling. We're carrying straight on with them doing a high number of inspections, sampling the ones that qualify for sampling and getting those through. So we've managed in this year, through May, we managed to do 748 SILO inspections, not us, DISH. And Texas has had 418 samples sent to NBSL for screening. And our positive ones aren't actually in there because those started in June. So, this is just an update for our dairy production, from January to May. And so just remember that cluster, it doesn't suggest much that we're finding more in Amarillo because we have more milk being produced in Amarillo. So just remember we had that geographic clustering. And so we're watching that very closely and watching our high production areas versus the areas where we're finding these dairies to see if there's anything else other than what we're all been told about. Biosecurity is very important. We need to pay attention to animals and things moving between dairies. So we are paying attention to the correlation between where we're finding it and where we have the highest risk based off of the production matrix, because the silo program they do not line up directly. We test at milk plants, not at dairies. So our 3 silo investigations so far, we found 1 dairy of the first investigation. It was subclinical. It was put under quarantine. It's being handled as a new case. The second one, we found 4 dairies as part of that one investigation. We already knew about all 4 of them, and all 4 of them were currently under quarantine when we found them through the silo thing. And then the third one, we found it was an even larger investigation based on the samples submitted and the samples that came back positive. There's multiple plants involved in that one. We did find those most recent 3 dairies, and when we found them, they're subclinical. So, and we'll see if they develop clinical signs or not. But we kind of knew this about the virus after how it changed as it did its tour around the nation. So this is where the nation sits right now with the 41 states unaffected. And again, there's a clustering effect here. The high milk production states were always going to be higher risk. And so we get to enjoy that. We'll get it again. So from there, any questions about HiPath AI or the silo testing? Beautiful. So tuberculosis, our other really heavy lift, going through the program. So our 2024 and 2025 cases, we still have 2 that have been worked on. One of those has now been closed. We can go in that in detail in a second. The 2026 slaughter surveillance cases, we still have the 2 that we're working through, but we've made progress going through the whole process with them to get them to assurance testing. And then we have 3 that came in from a dairy in Mexico. We have traces to work through there. And so the folks have been working on that and getting them to where they are appropriate. Not all of them have to go to assurance testing. So in detail, our large dairy that was TB affected in the spring of 2025 just completed its 4th removal test. And so that's a really good benchmark, and its arrow is going to be the next color next time. We're all excited, right? I am. The second one that's on the list has been closed out. We did get to quarantine released, and then they sold out the herd anyway. And so no assurance tested is needed because those cows went the way of the McDonald's. For 2026, the adult cow that was identified at harvest, we did the assurance, worked very closely with USDA on multiple levels to find a good way to test and have confidence in this dairy. We did all of that. The quarantine is released without them being categorized as affected. And so they have been enrolled in assurance testing, with their first assurance test being May of 2027. Other TB affected herd that we found, we knew that this one was going to have a high level of infection. Every time we looked, we found TB cows. And so we've been working with them. In July, we finished the 3rd assessment test. Been working very closely with them and helping them manage their dairy while we're going through the process. And their depopulation plan has just been signed. So depopulation was recommended, and they worked with USDA to get that process. And there was a depop plan signed between USDA, us, and that dairy. So we should see movement on that. Our out-of-state trace transfers, never say that New Mexico is not generous. We were able to follow up all of those. So the first one, that dairy had already been closed. So those are 5-year traces. So going back, this one was quite, the movement was an older movement. That dairy is closed out and out of business. The cows dispersed. And so that trace will be closed actually as untraceable because I can't find every exact paperwork that says that cow is definitely been processed, but we have the evidence from the group population level and the surrounding evidence, but it still will most likely be closed as untraceable. The small number of head that went through a dairy, we got a whole herd test and they will be enrolled in the assurance testing program. And then the larger dairy, we removed all of the cows. We were able to trace all of the cows and test them, and they got negative tests, and we were able to remove them from the herd as well for extra assurance. And so no assurance testing is needed there. A lot of work, especially since the last commission meeting report, but I mean, we're getting it. So September through May, these are the areas of Texas where we work. So it wasn't just the Amarillo region, especially with those New Mexico traces was the surprising location, but everyone has been great about working with our producers and working with our federal partners and working with EPI on doing everything that needs to do to get these moved on so they can go into assurance testing. And then on the insurance side, there's a lot of work done. So we closed out the Lipscomb County case assurance. We finished out that Bailey and Lamb, so those are going to get to go off the list. Sherman is active, but we got the winter testing. It's a very big project. We did have to enroll those 2 new ones in assurance testing, but they're done and we'll get them next spring. And then our beef herd, our Refugio County case is the one that's sold out. And so we can remove it from the assurance test. So a lot of balance, a lot of check. I mean, remember, insurance is, we celebrate when they get to assurance testing, and then we get to be friends with them for another 5 years. So getting this far, I think it's a great job. And with the amount of surveillance and checking we do in Texas to make sure we don't have TB. And so that's just shown here. We've got the herd sold out. We had the one case up in the Panhandle that is still active, but they transferred their cows out of state. So we gave them back to New Mexico. We've enrolled a few, and then we'll finish up the one at the very top there for test 2. And the yellow one, sudden. And so that's the big ones that I tend to go as close to now as possible. The other ones focusing on quarter 1, quarter 2, and this is quarter 3's report. And I just want to point out that this stops at May. And so not that I put in the request, but New World Screwworm decided to show up right when quarter 4 started. So we're going to be able to compare and contrast. And from a bias position inside the response, the numbers are going to be very close. Like everyone is doing their jobs and New World Screwworms. And I am pretty sure the numbers will line up with that. And that is amazing. But that's just a spoiler for next time. I don't have these numbers. So our trick cases through quarter 4, we had another 24 cases. And so 61 cases of a trick across the states. The concentration is about what it usually is. At the little further west, where we're seeing the most number of positive herds, but I don't think there's anything crazy going on with that or any difference in behaviors. Where we're seeing it pop up is about where we'd expect, and I'll do the year-over-year analysis during the trick working group meeting. The trick surveillance carries on with TVMDL, done over 18,000 PCRs, and they did close to 3,000 cultures so far through the quarters, and we still remain at that less than 1.5% rate for those PCR confirmations. Hello, nobody apparently wants to see about brucellosis. We've had the 2 throughout the entire year. We've had those 2 suspect cases, and so got those addressed and closed out. And the surveillance continues on. More surveillance in quarter 2 or in quarter 3 than in quarter 2, but nothing concerning there, no aberrations. Equine diseases. We had 17 total EIAs, 4 pyros throughout the year, and one set of hooves tested for EIA and pyro. So one equid that was dual infected so far throughout the year. And that geographic spread is here at the county level. The hash mark that you see there with the pink, so that's a county that has EIA and pyro. And then the hash mark means there's a horse there that also has EIA and pyro, which makes sense. It's a little hard to keep track of the units because all of our surveillance testing that I report is at the test tube level. You can assume it's at the horse level, though it doesn't count for repeats, where our reporting on the cases is at the case level. So those are 18 horses, and so the 17 EIAs plus the dual infected out of over 145,000 tests. Pyro's the same way. Our testing across the year and year over year is about the same. We did in horses have one outlier. We had this was in Q4, but in June, we had an EHM case. So there was a group of donkeys at a cell barn that were bought and relocated through a rescue operation. And then they were found to be clinically and diagnostically consistent with EHM. There was 4 confirmed cases in the 6 exposed cohorts, and so traveled altogether. Of those 4 cases, 3 died and 1 was euthanized. And then there was an additional 19 donkeys that were exposed or potentially exposed at that original cell barn. So we were able to get those traced and tracked and isolated, and we monitored them. They weren't exactly handleable or in a situation where we could even get some of them back. We could contain them. We couldn't necessarily easily get some of them back. So we monitored them and traced back as far as could. We don't know where the EHM came from, but we do know that we monitored enough that it didn't spread out and lead to a big outbreak. So we were able to respond and isolate or quarantine enough to keep it contained. Our bird diseases, influenza A and ILT. So we have the influenza cases that we responded to, 8, same as last time, no new ones right now. And so the map would be the same. And our surveillance testing continues on about the same level. You'll see 2,000, 2,900, 2,700, 2,900. So keeping on with a nice consistent testing pattern. ILT, we're up to 59 cases, 21 in the last quarter, so almost the same as Q2. And obviously there's a geographic concentration, but that stays consistent as demonstrated here. And we had 2 cases that didn't quite meet the norm that we looked at closely. Galveston County case where there's 1,800 birds. Someone decided to rescue birds and give them a new home in their, just bring them to meet their other 1,800 birds, and that did not work out. But we got that depopulated C&D, or we got them disinfected, got them sorted. The regions have done a really good job with education, especially about biosecurity in these cases. And then Bell County is a smaller operator, about 30 birds, brought home a bird from the flea market, learned its lesson, and then permanent quarantine. So those were not depopulated, but we have a flock plan in place to try to control that spread. The porcine diseases, so swine brucellosis and pseudorabies, stayed consistent. We had one brucellosis case. That case is very much in line, time of year and location with what we can see in Texas, yay feral hogs. And then pseudorabies, same thing, just a repeats, 6 in the same geography that we tend to see them a lot. We don't have, usually by this time of year, we have a dual affected county, so don't have that. But surveillance stays consistent. So we don't have it, but it's not because we're not looking for it. So we're still looking, we're still responding, we're still doing what we can. And our pseudorabies testing, our screening test, which is super complicated. Cervix are exotic susceptible species for CWD. So the transition over, we've 10 CWD trace out prims were released from hold order and transferred to Texas Parks and Wildlife. And then we had one positive breeding facility reviewed and released from our hold and quarantine successfully. Remember, we're still managing any of the ones that we have signed contracts and indemnity. So those, as those matriculate and get to, if they don't test positive every year, get to where they might be released, we are still managing and reviewing those. For our surveillance programs, this is just a reminder, this is Texas. This is where we know CWD prions are on the landscape. And so captive, free range, or free range and captive, we have proof that there are prions on the landscape at that county level. Surveillance in the third quarter, we usually see go down just based off, March to May is not the same activity, especially on our exotic hunting as September. So we've got 20 cases. This is what we had the quarter before that. And so 121. It is, okay. 121, and then our 102 from September through November. And so you'd piece those together to see the consistent and also the wide distribution of where we're actually getting samples from our producers. Most of them behind high fences, some breeders, but from our producers on checking for CWD. Our cattle fever tick program, this is a July map. This is where we're active. So red is the infested, and then we have the surveillance area, just our work concentrated in Willacy and Cameron, and then that Loop 20 area in Webb County. So Webb has no infested quarantines. We're still managing about 30 in Willacy, and then Cameron has the 13 that are persistent. And as part of that, we do still have our employees that are down in South Texas that pull and do tick IDs and surveillance, very targeted looking for it. And so they've done 1,242 submissions, and about a third of those remain consistent as ticks. Foreign animal disease investigations. So over the quarter, this is going to be very interesting. This is going to rock your socks next time when you see what happened at quarter 4. But just looking at the consistent surveillance and response and going out and doing a federal foreign animal disease investigation and getting those samples out to NVXL for our species and our diseases through the quarters. And that's it. Do y'all have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Our next item on the agenda will be a presentation of USDA veterinary services. Ms. Dr. Louisa Collins, how are you this morning?
Fine, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for having me, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Dr. Dinges. As you said, I'm Louisa Collins. I'm the AVIC, or Area Veterinarian in Charge for Veterinary Services in Texas. And I'll keep my remarks brief. But I would like to tell you some updates, staffing updates in our local office in Texas, then some brief remarks on program disease activities in Texas. I'll follow up with some additional information on foreign animal disease investigations, and then a really quick update on the New World Screwworm incident management team. So starting off with our local office, we're holding steady at about 29 full-time employees, which after listening to today's talk feels like a very tiny staff. But we have 12 veterinary medical officers, 16 animal health technicians, and 1 program assistant. And we recently, in fact, she started yesterday, hired Dr. Abby McGuire. She is based in Canyon, Texas. She's a recent graduate of Texas Tech University Veterinary Medical School, and we're thrilled to have her cover the Texas Panhandle. We've also hired a new veterinary medical officer who will be based out of Alpine, and her role will be to help support New World Screwworm activities out in that area, and she will start in October. Moving on to program diseases, adding into what you've heard already on the bovine tuberculosis front, we did approve the indemnity, thank goodness, for this herd that was pretty heavily infected. And that herd will be scheduled for depopulation starting the first week of September. And to date, APHIS has paid about $948,000 to indemnify Texas producers for TB activities, and that does not include this herd depop, I believe. On the CWD front, we still help control CWD in Texas by supporting Texas Parks and Wildlife. And thought I'd give you guys an update on that. In the last 4 months or so, there have been 4 more CWD positive herds that have been identified that APHIS has supported indemnity for depopulation. And all 4 of those herds have been depopulated. And to date, APHIS has paid the Texas producers $827,000 for indemnity, and there's 2 more herds pending payment, which I think is going to be another $200,000. On the scrapie front, USDA, as everybody knows, has a scrapie eradication program. We had a setback this year when scrapie was detected in a sheep that was slaughtered in Oregon. No Texas involvement there, but it did push back the hope for declaring the United States scrapie free. So now our earliest time we can declare scrapie freedom will be 2023, assuming no more detections. So Texas's involvement in the scrapie eradication program is in surveillance, and we have a quota of 1,000 samples from sheep and 1,000 samples from goats to collect, and we support that with a lot of money to some plants here, not a lot of money, but they get some compensation for collecting samples for us. And we have 4 plants in Texas that are doing that. I don't think we're going to meet our target this year, but we've been busy doing a lot of other things. On the bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or BSE, I'll just mention that we still have that eradication or surveillance program in place, excuse me, not eradication. And in Texas, we budget about $500,000 for that surveillance stream. So moving on to foreign animal disease activities, I'll add to what Dr. Monday presented for this fiscal year. For our federal fiscal year starting October 1, we've done 641 total investigations in conjunction with the state. 603 of those were New World screwworm. A lot of those are companion animals, but we have done overall 15 high path and 11 vesicular stomatitis cases. And on vesicular stomatitis, there is a current outbreak happening in the nation, thankfully not involving Texas. We don't need that here. But beginning in October of 2025, there's been 40 affected prens detected in 3 states, and that's Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. And there's currently, right now, only one of them still under quarantine. On avian influenza, just to add to what you already heard, in the last 30 days, there have been 4 flocks detected, none in Texas. One was a commercial flock, only one, and that was in South Dakota. And then just looking at emails, traffic this morning, there might be a second one in South Dakota. So we may start to be seeing the resurgence in the fall of high path coming our way. On the dairy cattle side, you heard a lot about the National Nipple Nesting Program and how we had a very short-lived freedom stage. But just to reiterate, the purpose of the dairy milk silo testing program is to eventually, hopefully, declare the United States free of HPAI in this stream. And right now, there's 46 states enrolled, 41 states are affected, and you saw the map of the states that are still currently affected. DSHS still continues to submit those samples, and we budgeted $288,000 to support that for DSHS. And nationally, that financial support for dairy farmers is still available. The biosecurity risk, the support for testing from paying veterinarians for testing and so on. And nationally, 807 herds are in 20 states are enrolled in some kind of financial support with APHIS. Additionally, the Farm Services Agency has, through their Emergency Assistance for Livestock, or ELAP program, 989 producer applications that they processed, and they paid 390 million plus dollars in that program since Dairy High Path came to town. So that's just some numbers and some financial stuff. And then moving over to New World Screwworm, I just wanted to point out that there was a great presentation, and this Texas really does lead the way for the rest of the nation. And believe me, they are nervous, especially the border states. But we've been able to have 5 incident management teams from the federal side come and rotate through starting in June of this year. We're on our 5th team now that they just rotated in last week, and they're posted at the State Operations Center with all the other responders. Their job is to help coordinate the response and support the states as they do their work. So they are expected to continue to be available as long as the state needs them and we don't have high path busting out everywhere else. We also continue to deploy New World Screwworm strike teams and put out the call for volunteers to come and be field responders. So I have a little bit different numbers than what you heard this morning, but what I read on yesterday's situation report is that there's now 186 total responders on the incident. 170 are on site, 97 from the state and 89 from the federal government. And those numbers change daily as people come in and out. And that does not include folks that are on the broader New World Screwworm planning and response, including the incident coordination group, which tries to corral all the response and the federal side, the New World Screwworm Directorate, and the folks that do the subject matter experts and things like that plan where they're going to just deploy the sterile insect technique. So lastly, I'll just mention the phased reopening of the southern border for cattle imports opened yesterday in Douglas, Arizona. 700 head crossed from what I understand yesterday. And again, I think that's going to be day by day as they monitor the situation in Mexico. So that's the end of my report. Happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Dr. Collins. We appreciate you being here. Our next item on the agenda will be a budget status report. Ms. Janine Cargashaw for Ms. Paula Andrews.
Yes, Paula was not able to be here today, so I am going to present the budget status report. So because this is impossible to read on the slide, there are larger printouts in front of each of you. So there's 2 things for y'all to review today. One is our current state of our financials, which is the money we've actually spent up through July. Obviously, this does not include our August expenditure since that month is still open. And then the second page is going to be our projected budget for fiscal year 2027. So the state fiscal year starts on September 1st. So as we finish out August 31st, that will end our fiscal year 26 and we'll transition to fiscal year 27. So right now, we're on track to have all of our expenses covered. One of the things that was an unexpected expense this year, obviously, was our New World Screwworm response. Some of the things that are built into our General Appropriations Act passed by the legislature is an ability to borrow funds from the next fiscal year, bring them forward to this fiscal year. So that is something we have actually done in order to meet our budget needs for fiscal year 26 is we borrowed about $400,000 from fiscal year 27. Now that $400,000 will also be able to be reimbursed through our federal cooperative agreement. So we still think we're in really good shape in terms of our financials for this fiscal year and next fiscal year. If for whatever reason we cannot recoup everything we've expended for New World Screwworm through the federal cooperative, there are other mechanisms within the state to draw from the governor's emergency management fund and things like that to make sure that we remain whole and all of our other animal health programs are still managed appropriately. So with that, our budget still is in good shape. I do have Irma Rodriguez, our budget analyst here, if you have any specific questions that I'm not able to answer.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the budget status report as discussed?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the budget status report as discussed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget status report. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed by no. The motion passes unanimously. And your next item, ma'am, will be consideration of and possible action on agency contracts, purchases, and leases.
Yes, so because we are about to turn over to a new fiscal year, this is our big contract, purchase and leases renewal. So as you remember, the commission, we bring before anything to y'all that exceeds $75,000. So these are our contracts, purchases, and leases that exceed that amount. I do have Shayna Kramer here, our head purchaser and our contracts manager. If you have any questions on these, but big items are going to be our leases for our building and then also just our regular renewals.
Okay, do I hear any questions? Do I hear a motion to approve the leases, contracts, and purchases?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the contract purchases and leases as discussed today.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, ma'am. We'll now call on Mr. Jabbar Fahim, consideration and possible action on orders in relation to commission rule violations.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. This set of disciplinary orders is a little bit shorter than they have been in the past. A lot of our compliance team has been deployed responding to New World Screwworm, so we kind of put a pause on having them go through a lot of the cases and investigating repeat offenders and moving forward on notices of violation. So these 3 of them were default orders from SOA cases that were taken before the State Office of Administrative Hearings, and 1 of them was a payment of an outstanding notice of violation. There's 4 cases. As usual, there's one with the dairy ID, not having official ID placed before arriving at a market. One was an admin penalty assessed for failure to comply with EIA requirements, not having a negative Coggins. One was not having a negative Coggins and a negative pyro test. Those are at the West Texas racetracks that Mr. Stockbridge had investigated. And one of those penalties was assessed for a driver not having the documents that they're supposed to have whenever they're transporting animals. This was a repeat offense, and we did assess an administrative penalty for that. And so those are the 4 disciplinary orders. These are the individuals. One of them was a repeat offender fairly recently, and we did get a default order on that individual from SOA. And so with that, I would recommend the what you see on the screen today. Happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the final order under agenda item number 15 as presented here today.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the final orders. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed by no. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda will be consideration of and possible action on proposed rules. Ms.
Good.
Penny Maley.
Good afternoon. I'm Penny
Good
Bailey.
afternoon. Yes.
I'm rounding out the agenda on everyone's favorite topic, administrative rules. I've got 4 proposals for consideration today. The first is an overhaul of Chapter 33, which currently is titled Fees. So we had an opportunity to be one of the pilot agencies to undergo a rule review process with the Texas Regulatory Efficiency Office. It was a pretty comprehensive and collaborative process, and they made several recommendations after looking through our rules to try to reduce unnecessary regulations that we weren't using and to increase transparency. And so the overhaul of Chapter 33 is a result of that rule review and also an effort to help transition to electronic CDIs, as we heard earlier today. So Chapter 33 currently includes sections on definitions, paper CDI instructions, fees on inspections of foreign cattle, and penalties. We don't really need the definition sections. They're definitions that are already baked into our rules. As I mentioned, we're trying to transition away from paper CDIs. The section on fees for inspection of foreign cattle is not a section we use anymore. We don't generate any fees from that. So the recommendation from TRIO, and we agreed, was to repeal Chapter 33 since we're not using it, and to update it to more accurately reflect our transition to electronic CDIs. So we're proposing, we're proposing a repeal of the entire chapter to be replaced with a new Chapter 33 titled Certificates of Veterinary Inspection, which will house a new 33.1 titled Certificates of Veterinary Inspections, requiring accredited veterinarians to use approved electronic CDIs, and sets a $7 fee for electronic CDIs. That fee is unchanged from the $7 we currently collect for paper CDIs. It'll also house a new 33.2 enforcements and penalties, which establish penalties for violating the chapter's rules. Those enforcement and penalties remain the same as if they were violations of paper CDI rules. So substantively, CDI and penalty sections are unchanged, just updated to reflect the transition to eCDIs. With that, staff recommends the following motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the proposed repeal and replacement of Chapter 33 Title Fees located in Title 4 of the Texas Administrative Code. If changes necessary to the proposed text, I further move that the notice of proposed repeal and replacement is published in the Texas Register within 30-day comment period.
Here a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second concerning Chapter 33, and I'm not going to try to repeat all that, but you all, does everybody understand it?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by no. The motion passes unanimously. Next is number 47.
Yes, 16B is Chapter 47, Authorized Personnel. So this is proposing a new addition to Chapter 47 to support our New World Screworm Certified Inspector Program that you heard Rex and Bradley talk about today. So the proposal is to create a subchapter D titled New World Screwworm to house standards and requirements for the NWS Certified Inspector Program. We know what those are, so I'm not gonna describe them to you. So the proposal would include 47.30, which establishes the steps individuals must take to become certified, and that sets standards that the certified inspectors must follow when carrying out their responsibilities. 47.31 states that the certified status is valid for 1 year and establishes how inspectors can recertify their status by retaking the course and passing the test. 47.2 will lay out violations for authorized personnel and failing to meet our standards and failing to immediately report observed signs of New World screwworm can result in suspension or revocation of certified status. The proposal is really modeled after our CWD postmortem sample collector rules. This is to help facilitate in situations where we do have violations of our rules that we're able to seek administrative penalties through our compliance branch and really build that out to ensure that these certified inspectors are maintaining the standards that we expect. So staff recommends the following motion.
Is there an exception, any on reviewing every year, taking the test every year, the course every year? Or
There isn't an exception built into the rule.
yes, right.
There's not.
No.
There's no exception. After you take the test, you've got 1 year and then you need to retake it. We thought that was a reasonable requirement, given that it's an online test. It's not we didn't think it was a heavy ask to have people refresh themselves with the online class. So that's the 1 year status.
Mr. Chairman.
Will that person be notified that his year's coming up?
Yes, so that's built in through our authorized personnel recs. He has all of their applications and he keeps them calendared and keeps them up to date on all of that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we propose the addition to chapter 47 titled Authorized Personnel located in Title 4 of the Texas Administration Code with changes as necessary to the proposed text. I further move that the notice of the proposed addition be published at the Texas Register with the 30-day comment period.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the additions to chapter 47. Any questions or discussion? Not all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no, and the motion passes unanimously. Next is chapter 51.
Agenda item 16C is an update to chapter 51, which is our entry requirements. This proposal is also a result of the regulatory efficiency review. They recommended that we repealed our 51.11 GOAT section, which houses rules on tuberculosis restricted zones and scrapie requirements. And they recommended we combine that with 51.12, which is our sheep rule. The recommendation is really premised on the idea that 51.11, the scrapie requirement, is kind of just a statement that redirects readers to 51.12 anyway. And so to streamline our rules for easier use, they recommended combining them. So that's what this recommendation is. It's a merger. It moves the TB restricted zone rules for goats into 51.12. And it updates some of our language regarding ECBIs, and it merges the scrapie requirements and then repeals 51.11. So staff recommends the following motion.
Mr. Chairman, we move that we propose the repeal and the amendments in chapter 51 titled entry requirements located in Title 4 of the Texas Administrative Code with changes as necessary to this text. And further move the notice of the proposed addition be published in the Texas Register with a 30-day course.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Starting after chapter 51, is there any further discussion or questions? Not all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by no, the motion passes unanimously. The next item will be concerning chapter 51.
Okay, so our next one,
57, I'm sorry.
16D is an update to chapter 57 poultry requirements. So we have exhibition poultry have posed a challenge for us to try to figure out how we can maintain disease traceability, how we can help facilitate movements of these animals to out-of-state exhibition shows and then back into the state that are in compliance with our rules. And so we really tried to find a path for them. And that is what this proposal seeks to accomplish. So currently, these exhibition poultry shows often occur on weekends. Many states that host these shows don't require CBIs for entry for these birds, which means we have Texas exhibitors leaving Texas to go to these weekend shows, and they either return back to Texas non-compliant, meaning they don't meet our entry requirements because they've left the state and they are re-entering Texas. They have to meet our entry requirements. But it's hard for them to meet the entry requirements because in order for them to get a permit, they've got to call during our regular hours. They've got to be able to find a vet in this out of state to perform our tests and to complete a CBI. And so what our proposal, the path we've created is that they can pre-meet our entry requirements here in Texas, leave on a CBI with all of the tests, and then travel back to Texas on that same CBI. So we think that this is going to provide us good traceability. It provides an avenue for these exhibitors to be in compliance with our rules. And I think we found that a lot of them really, really want to be in compliance. They just cannot. The proposal is the same entry requirements, but done as export requirements to address the challenges these exhibitors are facing. So what that looks like, let me get back to our slides. So to return, exhibition birds must have our current, excuse me. So our current, the way our rules currently work is exhibition birds have to have a CBI entry permit, and they need to be AI negative or flock tested within 30 days prior to entry. PT negative test within 30 days prior to entry. Our export rule would require them to leave on a CBI, have an AI negative test within 30 days prior, and a PT negative test within 30 days prior. And if they did all of that, they don't have to have an entry permit to re-enter on that same CBI. I don't know if I've done a good job explaining that. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We've considered high path concerns. If high path is detected in an event state after the birds have already entered that state, exhibitors must return the birds to their premise of origin at the earliest opportunity. They have to notify the commission and they need to isolate the birds for 14 days. The proposal also explicitly states that these movements do not allow birds to travel and re-enter Texas if they have traveled to a state that was already designated a high path impacted state at the time of movement. So these are not for birds traveling to a state that has already been declared a high path state. Those movements are not permitted. So if there are no questions, staff recommends the following motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we propose the amendments to Chapter 57 titled Poultry located in Title 4 of the Texas Administrative Code with changes as necessary to the proposed text. I further move that notice of the proposed addition be published in the Texas Register with a 30-day comment period.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the changes to Chapter 57 poultry. Any further questions or discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is presentation of awards and recognitions, and I know of none. So the next is finally public comments. And we'll call on Miss Cynthia Reek, if I'm saying that correctly. And You'll have 3 minutes to tell us what's on your mind, and we probably won't, make a lot of answers or
I will
take
be,
it under advisement.
I will be succinct. I wondered why not very many more people. There's lots of crying and screaming in the sale barn, but no one is here telling you about it. And this is why. It's not easy to communicate. How many people have read my email that I sent? How many on the commission? 3, 4, 5? Okay. So I'm glad that that came through. Mr. Klein mentioned screwworms will go away. And I'm ranching on the ranch where I grew up. I came home from the hospital there. I remember it till I was 16. It was gone for 60 years. As Mr. Klein said, it's going to be gone. Let's reduce. Let's not grow. Y'all haven't had cases, more than 2 cases in the last, it's going down. The flies, the sterilized fly program works. Concentrate on there. You've got plenty of other problems like chronic wasting disease. Let us that are in the zones, maybe in the blue zones, let us not have these inspections. I can do a Harper Valley PTA for everybody that spoke here. And some of them have left about what's really going on. I've been through 2 goat inspections, 2 sheep inspections, and a cattle inspection. And this DEX is expensive. I have to go to town. I have to buy it. I have to buy the syringes. And then I'm sending livestock with the scarlet letter to the market. And those buyers will dock anything. I mean, this guy said, we're working with the buyers. Well, I don't think so. So I propose that you reduce everybody in the blue zone when after a certain period of time when there have been no cases, let us not have inspections. Let us not have 3 trucks show up to look at 30 lambs. I know you're working hard, but we don't need more trucks. We need maybe more Starlink, maybe more communication. But this will go away. Is that my 3 minutes? Okay. I'm not a great speaker.
When you say Dex, do you mean Dectomax?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know how expensive that is? And we have to go to town and we have to go. And what is even more is I think
probably one of the cheapest products on the market to treat with this. There are other products approved, but they're far more expensive than
it costs $100 to do 10 steers. To me, that's expensive.
I haven't bought it at your store, but I sell it for a lot less than that. A lot less than that. Shop around. It should not be.
What is interesting is an unnamed vet I knew somebody going to town, an unnamed vet in Fredericksburg sent back Ibomax. When we asked, so.
They're similar.
But not allowed. Your inspector would not allow Ibomax. It's expensive, then we have a waiting period, and then we have a scarlet letter.
Your point is well taken, and we appreciate your input.
Thank you
very much. Well, I want to thank everyone for bearing with us. It was a long meeting, and we appreciate everyone sticking around. And thanks for your interest and your attendance, and we will now be adjourned.